This story is about a weak and old F-rank porter who spent all his life being a loser. But one day, while he was on his job, all of the players that were with him got wiped out by this huge monster. It loomed over him and was about to take his life. He yelled and fought even though he knew he had no chance of surviving. His desperation was then recognized by an almighty being called King and gave him powers and another shot in life. The next thing he knew was that he was back in the past where he was being bullied. But this time, he has the power called predation, a skill that could devour all the other skills in the world. If this got your interest, here's the sauce of the manhwa and enjoy watching. The story began by revealing a black sunset against a crimson sky in a desert landscape. Monsters were already flooding the area, and they were already ready to devour anyone. We then see our main protagonist screaming at the top of his lungs as he grips a small dagger with him. He directed the attack towards this monster who looked like a giant worm with a lot of sharp teeth. In a closer perspective, the monster let out a cry as our MC successfully landed his attack. Although he nearly lost his arm along the process, his hands trembled as he realized what could have just happened if he hesitated even for a second. A few moments later, the monster had finally collapsed beside him, and he let out a sigh of relief. He caught his breath as he tried to wipe the blood of the monster that was splattered on his face. Our MC then uttered that he can now finally defeat a monster using his own power. But his thought was interrupted as someone called him unawakened. His attention was then directed elsewhere. Right in front of him was a gruesome battlefield. Corpses of monsters were already piling up and humanity continued their hunt. The man that called him earlier then shouted on what he was doing. He addressed our MC as a mere porter, and he commanded him to just do his job and collect the drops from the monsters. The guy beside him agreed. Our F-rank porter was then flustered and he immediately apologized. He was reminded that a fool like him should not space out around. The two men had already turned around to proceed on their hunt, but they still commented that the porter was such a useless bastard. Our MC's expression turned serious as he was reminded what's his role in this cruel world. The emotion that he felt was overwhelming, and the only word he could utter for this situation was fuck. In this world he lived in, everything changed after the abyss was discovered. It's another dimension where monsters that only existed in fantasies actually existed. And after the discovery of the mysterious place, people have started to awaken transcendental powers. Using those powers, they defeated monsters and continued to explore the abyss. As a result, the conventional method of evaluating individuals shifted away from assessing their personality or effort, but on their awakening rank. If someone's awakening was high enough, they are guaranteed to live a good life. As our MC continued to check the corpses of the monsters that were defeated, he got this purple gem. He then remembered how the abyss changed his life. Not for the better, but for worse. He spent his life working as a porter because he's unawakened and has never even opened a status window at the age of 35. He knew that the comfortable life that he was dreaming of was still unreachable as long as he's not awakened yet. Shifting his focus, our MC turned around to inform the players that he already got the loot, but his expression changed as soon as he saw what's in front of him. The once battlefields that were full of monster corpses were changed into the bodies of the players being piled up. All the humans that came up with him were dead, even the guys who just berated him a while ago. While wondering what the hell just happened, his expression turned more grim and horrified as he heard an ominous voice that told him that he was the only one left. He then turned around and saw the gigantic monster that loomed over him. This one was different from the usual monsters that they hunted from the abyss. This formidable creature, known as Asmodeus, was categorized as a triple S-ranked monster, signifying its exceptional level of power and threat. Our MC knew that this was now a lost cause. There's no way he could survive against one of the most powerful beings in the abyss, but he still opted to muster his strength and dash towards it. The dark arms of Asmodeus then moved and went towards him, and in an instant, his arm was hit by a powerful force that made it instantly detached. As soon as his mind caught up on what just happened, our MC screamed in pain and fell on the ground. But even then, he still did his best to shift his focus and look at Asmodeus so he could understand what just happened to him. His eyes widened in sheer shock as he realized something. Asmodeus was already standing in front of him, and the triple S-rank monster directed a ray of purple light towards our MC. This guy had no way of dodging the attack as it approached his forehead. All he could do now was to watch and wait for his death. While his blood dripped down, he continued to stare at the red, menacing eyes of Asmodeus. He wondered if this is how he's gonna die. Tears fell from both of his eyes as he realized that this was really happening. His end was near. His life was already flashing before his eyes as he recalled the car accident that killed his parents, the time when he was bullied in school, and how he lived a life of being ignored just because he was unawakened. Even more so, his heart was then filled with regret and anger as he realized that he will now be ending his life after only carrying around cargo. He thought that he was such a fucking loser. Our MC clenched his teeth as more blood dripped from his face. It was as if he was already crying tears of it. The scene then shifted as it focused on one of the droplets. The solitary drop then made a transformation. It shifted its color and started emitting a bright light. A vortex of light then appeared, and it showed that all the awakening conditions had been satisfied. The horrifying scene that our MC was seeing a while ago changed into what looked like the vast universe. A white figure also appeared out of nowhere. The F-rank porter then stared at the mysterious being that was descending from the golden stairs. Things were progressing much quicker than his brain could process, and it got him all confused. Our MC's gaze got fixed on the white being that was now in front of him. He then turned around as he recalled that moments ago, he was just about to die from Asmodeus. But right now, he was staring at his own self that had fallen on the ground. As he stared more intently, he noticed that the triple S-rank monster had stopped moving. The white figure let out a laugh as he was amused by our MC's intense focus on Asmodeus stopping. The porter then shifted his attention towards the white figure being and asked about his identity. His question made the white figure smile, and he introduced himself as King. But he told our MC that he doesn't need to worry about that. And while sitting on his golden throne, King spoke again and revealed that he shall now be bestowing an authority onto the F-rank porter from now on. Our MC struggled to really grasp what was really happening. He wondered what the so-called king was talking about. Even mentioning words like authority, King noticed his hesitation and told him that it's not good to be so distrustful, which alerted him. The king went on to explain that he admired the man's tenacity and strong will, which was the reason for choosing him for this special opportunity. As King held his hand in front of the human, he reminded him that this was the only chance he would ever get. Our MC was still confused and tried to ask King what was really happening, but his questions were left unanswered. But the king assured him that if he waits patiently, the day where he will understand everything will come. A white, blinding light then enveloped our MC's body, and the last words he heard were, "Let's meet again." Suddenly, a monster materialized out of thin air. The white figure made mention of a key in the midst of this unexpected development. As the man slowly regained consciousness, he began to hear a voice, which disparagingly stated that a bastard was still sleeping. He started opening his eyes as this voice told him how he is ignoring them, and this voice decided that it's time to wake him up. As he fully opened his eyes, he was met with the sight of a smiling man who greeted him with a warm good morning. However, to his shock, the guy that was smiling abruptly slapped him. After delivering the forceful slap, the man inquired, "Are you awake now?" The man who had slapped him, along with two others, appeared to be familiar. He grabbed our MC and stated that he only listened when given a good beating. It was then that the man recognized this individual as Bei Husu. He couldn't help but wonder how the person who had been a relentless bully during their high school days was now standing before him. The bully referred to him as Taeyun and questioned why he wasn't responding. Confusion washed over him, as he had been certain that he was in the abyss just moments ago. As he received another harsh slap, he couldn't help but wonder if the newfound authority he had been granted. His eyes held a distracted look, as if his mind was entirely consumed by the strange events happening around him. He noticed a notification status displayed on his side, which stated his name as Kim Tae-hyun, his age as 19, and revealed his rank as F along with information about his skill. He was taken aback by the appearance of the status window, particularly when he realized that it indicated he was only 19 years old. Realizing that the status window indicated that it had been 16 years since he was 19, he couldn't help but break into a smile. He burst into hearty laughter. The man's unexpected and prolonged laughter unnerved the bully. The bully inquired about what was wrong with him and asserted that he must have gone mad, yet the man continued to laugh uncontrollably. The bully, increasingly agitated by the man's laughter, declared that he truly seemed to want to be hurt, further escalating the tension in the situation. In a sudden turn of events, Kim Tae-yoon delivered a powerful punch to the bully, striking him with significant force. The two other bullies were left in a state of shock. Kim Tae-yoon, despite his previous laughter, continued to smile as realization dawned on him. His smile persisted because he had come to the realization that he had also awakened. The four of them were still on the rooftop while the bully named Hyuk-soo lay on the ground. Kim Tae-hyun rubbed his cheek, and the two other bullies launched forward to attack him. They have their own unique powers, as one yields fire on his hand while the other bully's hand is frozen. The bully tried to hit him with his fire, but he successfully dodged, and then he punched back. While he kicks the other bully in the stomach, he had a serious expression on his face, as he recalled that for 35 years, almost all of his entire life as an unawakened, he did everything he could, from fundamental physical training to study all the information about the abyss and monsters and learn different skills, even interpersonal combat skills such as boxing, kendo, archery. That's why he's confident that he'll lose to the untrained bullies. The two bullies advanced towards him in an attempt to land an attack. He fought back and easily landed attacks on them as he claimed them to be someone who doesn't even know the basics. The bullies fell to the ground, and Tae-hyun catches his breath. He rubbed his knuckles as he looked down on those defeated students as he smiled and uttered how he needs to take physical training again. Bae-soo surprised him when he uttered what a load of bullshit. Tae-hyun saw Hyuk-soo standing up while Hyuk-soo expressed his shock at how Tae-hyun had awakened, and he cursed at him. Hyuk-soo unleashed his ability and his body turned into a sturdy-looking stone as he expressed his anger and informed Tae-hyun that he will be dead. Hyuk-soo's ability is called Stone Skin at rank C. This ability strengthens the body with stones surging from the skin. Hyuk-soo tried to punch Tae-hyun. Tae-hyun successfully evaded that stone fist. With fast movement, Hyuk-soo launches another attack, almost hitting Tae-hyun. Tae-hyun was surprised to witness that Hyuk-soo had leapt in front of him in an attempt to smash him with both of his fists. This attack caused a huge explosion, making debris and dust fly everywhere. As the area is starting to become clear of dust, it can be seen that Hyuk-soo is standing still with his fists still in contact with the ground, and in a flash, Tae-hyun was behind him to launch an attack. Upon sensing this, he turned to see his backside, and immediately Tae-hyun came in contact with his face with a strong force. Tae-hyun's other fist was ready for another punch, but something had shocked him. Hyuk-soo was staring back at him with a smirk, asking him what he's doing. Hyuk-soo seemed unaffected with the attack since his face had also turned into stone. Tae-hyun noted how he hurt his hand by hitting Hyuk-soo. Hyuk-soo launched a counterattack, successfully coming into Tae-hyun's body, and that attack blasted Tae-hyun away. Tae-hyun crashed on the ground with a huge impact that made the ground crack. He coughed blood and one side of his head is bleeding profusely. Hyuk-soo confidently walked towards him and mocked him by saying that he should have known his own limits. With a smug look, Hyuk-soo insulted him by calling him a lowly, unawakened bastard. He asked him if he's going to run like he used to do all the time, or if he is going to choose to struggle with his newly awakened skill. While laying on the ground, Tae-hyun remembered that all awakenings possess a skill and a rank. It starts with rank F, who is not far from being a normal human, and the highest rank is S, who are akin to being monsters. The physical abilities and skills of the awakened rises exponentially, but Tae-hyun knew that what he possesses is a skill unknown and unheard of, but it's the worst of rank. The notification screen shows that he's at rank F with a skill called Predation. Therefore, he couldn't help but to admit that he had no chance of winning against Bae Hyuk-soo, who's HE rank, but for some reason, he felt differently. Bae Hyuk-soo stopped on his tracks when he noticed something unusual. Tae-hyun's injured hand is covered with a fiery red glow. As he stood up, his body seemed to be engulfed in a sinister aura. He declared that he doesn't feel like he's going to lose. Surprisingly, his aura grew stronger. It covered the area in a red and black hue, while a gust of red wind swirled around him like it was about to start a tornado. Hyuk-soo couldn't help but wonder what the hell was in front of him. With a strong wind blowing towards his way, Hyuk-soo couldn't believe that Tae-hyun actually awakened. His disbelief stems from the idea that for him, Taeyun is a lowly person. Taeyun looked at his hands as they emitted smoke like red hue, and he couldn't help but wonder if that is the skill called predation. He felt the magic move according to his will. He heard Yusu declare that he doesn't know what's happening, so he gazed at him with his red, glowing eyes. Yusu advanced to attack him with his mind filled with the idea that everything will be over once he killed the caster of the magic. Taeyun extended his red, smoke-covered hand and released a powerful attack in the form of several circular lights. Yusu was surprised with this. Especially this overpowered his ability, which made him shed the stones from his body. As his fist came in contact with Taeyun's hand, Taeyun seemed to release more of his power. Red thread-like hue swirls around his body as his hand emits a bright light. Taeyun's face looked serious and focused as he willed his power to his liking. His eyes became fierce as the battle continued, and Yusu made loud noises as he did his best not to lose the fight. But his efforts were in vain as the stones covering his body fully disappeared. The students from across the rooftop seemed to be oblivious to the intense battle until a great red tornado covered the whole sky. The explosion caused thick smoke to cover the whole area. Along with it are debris flying everywhere. As the smoke slowly disappears, Taeyun's is also slowly fading away. The red hue that covered his body was no longer there, while Haiksu looked like he was roasted with his face covered in black dirt and his eyes had rolled back into his head. Taeyun watched every second as Yusu fell to the ground. He didn't leave unscathed as he appeared extremely exhausted from the battle. A notification screen informed him that predation had been completed, and as a result of preying upon a target, his rank went up to E. Stones started covering Taeyun's hand, and the notification screen informed him that he has a new skill. Taeyun's arm had looked like Yusu's arm earlier. This is because the stone skin has been registered as his new skill. At the school clinic, the nurse is surprised with the patient that had come in. It was Kim Taeyun, with the two bullies in his arms, and the other one was placed lying down by the door. Taeyun, looking like he's also about to pass out, still managed to politely and calmly greet the nurse. The nurse couldn't help but to let out a scream from the confusion and shock. After the fight ended, Taeyun still initiated to bring everyone to the clinic. And with the nurse's healing ability, she treated Taeyun. When she asked how they got injured, Taeyun naturally lied to her by saying that they just rolled down the stairs. And surprisingly, he managed to deceive her as she did not probe any further. After the treatment, he walked on the streets as his thoughts wander. He felt good that he had awakened and finally got revenge on Yusu. But there was still a problem. Taeyun is portrayed in the center, while a branch of tree with thorns in spiral shape is on his backdrop. This seemed to be his ability, the predation, which is one of his concerns at the moment. His rank that he barely got to change after training for his entire life instantly increased after a single fight. His rank may be an F rank, but the power exceeds that of a C rank. In addition to that, he can even steal the skills of the opponents that he had defeated. As he ascended the stairs, he started wondering why the white figure called King gave him that power, and even made him go back in time. Countless questions filled his head. Despite that, with a fierce look, he knew that there's one thing that he needed to do. He stood at the gate of a 3-story house determined to find out more about predation. He smiled as he uttered that it has been a while since he came home. After his parents had passed away, he stayed with his uncle. He pictured his uncle and his family, and his smile grew wider. He entered the house as he planned his search for information while his uncle was out. As the living room came into view, he was shocked by what he had witnessed. A man is sitting in a single chair while two people with their faces covered on each side, and a boy is crouched on the floor to clean up the scattered money. This boy is also surprised to see Taeyun. The boy seemed surprised and in panic as he uttered Kim Taeyun. Taeyun also called out to the kid named Wang Jae-young, and he asked why the boy isn't in school. And then his attention was drawn somewhere, as he focused on the money scattered on the ground. He couldn't help but think of Jae-young as a bastard. This is because even before he regressed, he remembered how Jae-young hung around with the other bullies to the point that he took all the money in the house and caused a huge fuss. Taeyun watched Jae-young whisper to the guy who just stood up. Taeyun realized that a major incident from the past is actually happening today. One of the guys voiced out that he was actually wondering who just entered, but it was just Jae-young's cousin. He told Taeyun that if he doesn't want to get beaten up, he should not get involved and just quietly pass by. This guy assured Taehyun that they will just take what they need and leave. And they proceeded to insult Taehyun by patting his head and calling him unawakened older brother. Taehyun stared at him with a blank expression, and a sinister smile creeped on his face as he commented how perfect the situation is and declared that he wants to test something. This confused the guy who was mocking him earlier. Instantly, Taehyun punched the guy with brute force. This made the guy cough up as his body collided with the ground. Jae-young and the two covered guys were shocked to see this and were instantly in an alarmed stance. Taehyun went on top of the guy to land another attack. As his hand was about to reach the guy's face, the guy tried to stop it by screaming, "Wait!" But this did not stop Taehyun as he proceeded to use his skill predation. The three other guys in the room continued to watch the scenario in front of them. Taehyun smiled in anticipation. His expression changed into disappointment when he received the notification that the predation function is inaccessible. The guy beneath him looked horrified and confused when Taehyun suddenly froze in disappointment and confusion. Sweat dripped down his face as the reality that the predation didn't activate started sinking in. The guy took this as an opportunity to fight back as he raised his fist, and with a strong impact, it landed on Taehyun's face. Taehyun groaned loudly as his back collided on the floor. The guy screamed at him to die while the other two covered guys assumed a combative stance. They used their ability, with one guy having a C-rank bind skill, and the other one releasing his C-rank poison skill, and the leader activated his C-rank bleed skill. In perfect synchrony, the three attacks were about to close in on Taehyun, who was struggling to keep himself up. Once he was able to lift up his head, he was surprised to see this, and a loud, bright light exploded from inside the house towards the outside. Purple smoke covered the entire room. The guy who appeared to be the leader expressed how he pretended to be awakened. He commented that Taehyun should know his place. His confident demeanor turned into shock and confusion as he witnessed the scene in front of him. Amidst the smoke, he can see the silhouette of Taehyun standing still, and a notification screen indicated that the usage of skill has been detected. Another notification showed that bind, poison, and bleed has been confirmed. These attacks covered the area, but Taehyun's body remained still as it glowed with bright light. A notification appeared containing the information that due to a mysterious power, resistance was successful. Taehyun's hand is starting to get covered in stones while he smiled and commented how his skill unexpectedly did not work, but then it neutralized skills out of the blue. He declared that he still doesn't know what's going on, but he focused on the leader of the guys who still had the surprised expression on his face, and immediately, the leader was brought down to the ground by Taehyun's stone-covered hand. Kim Taehyun seemed to be pleased with how strong his power is. While he had an ecstatic look on his face, the leader's face was damaged, and he even lost a tooth. Looking neat and confident, Taehyun stared down. The defeated men lay on the floor in front of him. He seemed to be pleased with the two things that he had learned because of them. One of the things he learned is that the status window that's only visible for the awakened had detailed information, but not all of it is displayed. He was aware of having sufficient mana, yet predation didn't activate, suggesting that factors beyond mana influenced its use. Additionally, an undisclosed passive effect of the predation skill exists, capable of countering skills related to abnormal conditions, like poisoning or bleeding. Although this isn't mentioned in the skill description, with a hand on his jaw, he thought of gradually confirming whether his speculations are correct. His thoughts were diverted to the pressing concern at the moment. He asked what Jae-young was doing when he saw him bowing to him. With great enthusiasm, despite his sweat and snot dripping, Jae-young declared that after he saw his cousin's impressive side, he is reflecting on his actions. He then asked for Taehyun's forgiveness. Taehyun remained silent with a deadpan expression on his face. Jae-young proceeded to tell him that whether it's licking his shoes or barking like a dog, he'll do whatever Taehyun wants him to do. Deep inside, Taehyun sees Jae-young as pathetic. He knew that his cousin was a damn fox, but he didn't realize that it was to that extent. He had a disgusted look on his face when he heard Jae-young bark like a dog. He didn't plan to give more energy into this, since the urgent issue isn't his cousin. Since there was another incident that will happen that day, the said incident would have to do something about a red humongous entity with 4 eyes. This entity is covering the sky, but people in the busy street don't seem to notice. Taehyun informed Jae-young that he will forgive him. This made Jae-young enthusiastic and happy. But Taehyun continued that he wants something in return, and that is for Jae-young to accompany him to finish a task. In a restricted place, dark clouds covered the sky. The entrance to this place has signage which warns that the area is restricted and only authorized personnel are allowed. One man in a suit and two women is inside the area and is occupied with the scenario in front of them. They realized that it was a gate break. They watched how monsters showed up from a barrier. Gate break is a phenomenon where monsters appear as a path to the abyss suddenly opens up. If left unattended, a dungeon disaster will occur. The man commented how it has been 10 years since the last dungeon break. He explained that the gate was suddenly created, so the monsters came swarming. One of the women expressed that judging from the monsters, if they don't do anything, the dungeon disaster is only moments away. The other woman panicked and asked if they should get the neighborhood areas to evacuate. Someone answered that there's no need for that. It was the man in a suit. He confidently explained that they already have his skill, B-rank barrier on their side. This barrier is shown to prevent monsters from passing through their world. The man continued to explain that the gate break is only at C rank, while he explains that the monsters are forcefully trying to break through the barrier. The man added that since it's just C rank, it would mean that the monsters that come out of the gate are also C rank, indicating that the monsters are not strong enough to break through the barrier. The monsters continued to persist in breaking the barrier so much so that the barrier started having cracks. The man continued to explain something, but he stopped mid-sentence as the barrier behind him broke and the monsters started getting out. The two women witnessed this, and they called out to their team leader with a hint of concern. The man immediately turned around, and with a single kick, he was able to defeat several monsters at once. He told the women that as B-rankers, they are more capable of handling it. With his attack, he was able to cut off a monster's head. Wang Jae-young ran fast as he asked this sir if everything should be all right. He tried to convince Sir that since he knew the control personnel were there, everything should be all right. Taehyun told him to stop calling him Sir. Taehyun confirmed that Jae-young is right, since the gate break's initial mana estimate is C rank. On the other hand, the control personnel are B rank, so there won't be any issues against C rank opponents. Wang Jae-young enthusiastically told him that it was exactly what he said. But Taehyun revealed that everything's okay if it's actually a C rank dungeon. This revelation shocked and horrified Wang Jae-young. A pile of dead monsters' body has been scattered in the restricted area. The man in the suit inspected the bodies while thinking how strange the situation was. He couldn't fathom how the low-rank monsters pierced through his B-rank barrier, and a thought suddenly came to his mind. The possibility that the mana overflowing in the area is actually above his rank. One of the women called his attention to inform him of something unusual in the gate. They saw several mean-looking monsters exiting the gate, and among these is one humongous monster with several sharp teeth. They continued to observe this monster as it kept pushing through the barrier, and the monster opened its wide mouth to let out a horrifying roar. The man's eyes widened in shock. He asked what that thing was. Yet the monster let out another loud roar as it fully broke the barrier, and more monsters passed through the barrier with it. The giant monster is being so loud with its roar. This monster is called a giant ogre, and it's an A-rank monster. The man had a horrified expression on his face as he realized that the gate break is not C rank, but it was actually a rank. In a split second, flames engulfed his vision. Loud explosions happened consecutively. The area was covered in flames. Jae-young continued to talk while running. He assumed Taehyun was right, but he couldn't shake the idea that it's ridiculous. He asked his cousin how he knew such a thing. Taehyun only answered in his mind. He couldn't tell him that he had already gone through this before he regressed. Jae-young told him, aside from the fact that they haven't seen the monsters and an evacuation order wasn't even issued. Taehyun answered intuition. This confused Jae-young. Taehyun explained that his intuition says so. But Jae-young has caught on to his lie. Jae-young was telling his cousin not to fool him, but he stopped mid-sentence as they heard a loud scream. In front of them are humans running for their lives as the monsters chase them. The people told them to run because there had been a gate break. More people screamed and asked for help because of the terrifying scene in front of him. Jae-young turned pale and his mind went blank. Taehyun remained calm and asked him if he remembered what to do. He then urged him to do it. Jae-young hesitated and asked what would happen to his cousin. His eyes grew wide. Tae-yoon told him that he will get rid of those fuckers and be right behind him. Tae-yoon walked towards the monsters as his body was starting to be covered with stones. Meanwhile, a large tall building is being lit by several lights from different angles. A man looking over the city lights admitted that the situation is escalating quickly. He explained that the gate break that was thought to be C rank turned out to be A rank. They can't expect reinforcements since others are busy in dungeon conquests and abyss exploration. He looked at the person that he was talking to and revealed that the only solution is an awakened A rank. With a hint of desperation, he told this person that he's the only hope. He requested this person's help. He called the person An Hyun Soo, the Blade of Lunacy. He's an A rank awakened. This person had tears falling in his eyes as he bit his lip. With determination evident in his eyes, he told everyone to hang in there as he will come to them soon. A status window indicates that his special skill is 8th grade syndrome. A monster can be seen being hit on the head, and then another monster is hit on its face. And another one has been knocked out by Kim Tae-hyun. The last monster that he punched had fallen to the ground along with other dead bodies of monsters. He extended his hand and a red, sinister aura started glowing. And in just one swift move, as he unleashed a red tornado-like attack, several monsters were ripped to shreds. He had a smug look on his face as he continued using his powers. He also seemed pleased to have confirmed his theory that the cause of Predation's failure is based on fatigue. His current fatigue is at 52%, and if fatigue passes 70%, his skills won't activate. Most skills are activated based on the usage of mana, but that doesn't mean that it's the only thing to think about. That's because fatigue also plays a major factor. Fatigue increases if skills are used or there's physical activity. And the higher it gets, the more power of the skill decreases and the heavier the physical body gets. He finds it unfortunate that there's several factors to consider. However, Tae-hyun discovered that if he absorbs dead monsters, he can recover his mana without having to spend any. This is because the target's life activity is stopped, so mana will no longer be consumed. And with that, he successfully completes Predation and recovers his mana. He smiled at the thought that there's even more good news. His rank has changed to D. His Predation and Stone Skin both went up to D from E. With this, he concluded that the more he uses Predation, the more that he can grow. He can already imagine that if it continues at that rate, he can become S rank or even S rank. Aside from that, he entertained the possibility that he'll be the first S rank. After clearing the area with monsters, he declared that he's done and will head back to where Jae-young is. He wasn't able to finish his sentence because of what he sensed from behind him. In an instant, there was a huge monster falling down on where he's standing. This monster is being defeated by a man with a golden sword. This isn't just any monster, but it was the A-rank ogre. The man with the sword called it a dirty monster and vowed to make it pay for all the people that it had killed. And this man declared that himself, An Hyun-soo, the warrior of justice, will be the judge of its end. He declared this with all enthusiasm while tears were falling down from his eyes. Tae-hyun seemed to be unamused with the childish declaration. The ogre roared as it lifted its fist in the air while An Hyun-soo anticipated the attack. An Hyun-soo, with his eyes filled with determination, he lifted his sword and showered the ogre with several diamond-like blades of light. The attack was so powerful that it formed an explosion in the middle of the city. Tae-hyun was astonished by what he just witnessed. He couldn't believe that the man easily defeated an A-rank monster. He assumed that the man is the A-ranked awakened who single-handedly solved the break before he regressed. He knew the man was the Blade of Lunacy, An Hyun-soo, and he just confirmed that the man is as strong as what the rumors say. An Hyun-soo smiled and made a goofy expression as he declared that the idiotic monster died at the hands of his justice sword. Seeing this, Tae-hyun couldn't deny that the rumors that An Hyun-soo is as stupid are correct. As he continued to gaze at An Hyun-soo, he wondered why he suddenly appeared in the area. Since before he regressed, An Hyun-soo is engaged in a bloody battle with a giant ogre on the other side of the city. An Hyun-soo is focused on praying for the citizens who passed away to find peace. Tae-hyun continued to have several thoughts in his mind as he watched An Hyun-soo. But instantly, as the notification window appeared indicating a skill was sensed, he felt a horrifying presence. An Hyunsu was stabbed in the middle of the chest by a bald man behind him. He coughed up blood as he uttered, "What?" With a sinister grin, the man exclaimed as he had finally caught An Hyunsu. A vast area of the city has been damaged. Meanwhile, a marketplace of clothing seemed to be unaffected. Jae-young observed the nurse who was sleeping on the couch. The nurse seemed to be oblivious to the chaos outside or to the presence of another person. Jae-young perspired as he asked himself if what he's going to do is okay. He recalled his conversation with Dakyun-yoon. He was informed that a lot of people will die, and one of those people is their school nurse, Choi Ne-young. Tae-yoon informed him that the nurse will die because she focused on relief activities rather than evacuating. Tae-yoon asked Jae-young if he can put people to sleep with his sleep skill, and Jae-young confirmed this. He was then given an instruction to put the nurse to sleep and evacuate her to a safe place, and Tae-yoon declared that he will handle the rest. As he continued to watch Choi Ne-young, Jae-young wondered how his cousin knew all about those things. All of a sudden, a thought crossed his mind. He judged this thought as nonsense, but he couldn't fully shake it off since it's the only possible explanation. His blood rushed with the idea that his cousin awakened to a skill to see the future. He exclaimed how seeing the future is so cool. An imaginary Tae-young with a crystal ball and cloak tries to say no. Jae-young chose to think that nothing will go wrong. Meanwhile, Tae-yoon can only curse upon seeing the scene before him. An Hyunsu is clutching his chest as he comes face to face with the man who stabbed him. Tae-yoon couldn't help but think how it all went wrong. An Hyunsu demanded for the man to declare his identity. The man had a creepy expression as he commented how An Hyunsu is still alive after being stabbed in a vital point. He remarked how our ranks are in a different league. The man told An Hyunsu that it makes the hunting fun. This man is called Han Sang-do, a B-ranked villain with a stealth skill. Those awakened who commit crimes are called villains, and B-ranked Han Sang-do is one of those. He is a homicidal maniac who, during the gate break, went around murdering people for his own thrill. Tae-yoon couldn't understand the situation since before he regressed, An Hyunsu and Han Sang-do never met. He started to wonder if the future has changed because of him. An Hyunsu got enraged after knowing that he is a villain. He drew out his sword and vowed to punish the villain with his own hands. An Hyunsu stopped in the middle of it when he heard the ogre groaning. His and Han Sang-do's attention were drawn to where the ogre was. The ogre growled loudly as it launched a powerful attack towards them. It made a louder noise to express its anger. An Hyunsu was caught off guard at the sight of the giant ogre. Han Sang-do laughed. He seemed to be amused with the regeneration ability of the A-rank monster. The ogre raised its fist again, in preparation for another attack. His fist came in contact with the ground, and it caused a massive explosion. Fortunately, An Hyunsu and Han Sang-do were able to evade this. Since the ogre is wreaking havoc, Han Sang-do had decided to leave An Hyunsu's defeat in the hands of the ogre. Han Sang-do's attention is diverted to another person. He came face to face with Kim Tae-hyun and commented how they had a spectator earlier. He seemed thrilled with the idea of having another prey. Then he decided to launch an attack on Tae-hyun, who seemed to be caught off guard. His weapon came close to Tae-hyun's neck as he screamed for him to die. Han Sang-do expected his blade to cut Tae-hyun's head, so he was surprised when Tae-hyun's neck was covered in stone. Tae-hyun smirked at him and called him a moron, and then he launched a powerful kick towards Han Sang-do. Han Sang-do seemed annoyed to figure out that the person in front of him was awakened. Tae-hyun addressed him as B-rank villain Han Sang-do, and this made him pay close attention. Tae-hyun asked him if he was the lunatic who's going around committing murder using stealth skill. He smiled at him and expressed that he feels great for running into him. His stone-covered arm clashed with Han Sang-do's blade. Han Sang-do seemed to enjoy attacking Tae-hyun consecutively. On the other hand, Tae-hyun looked serious while he countered Han Sang-do's blade with his arm. This pattern of fighting continues. Han Sang-do uses his blades to attack while Tae-hyun protects himself using his stone-covered arms, and then he will launch a counterattack. They both took a step back. Han Sang-do commented that Tae-hyun is skilled enough to be confident. He looked at him while he made a remark that it's unexpected how blades would be useless against him. He went on to tell him that he doesn't know how Tae-hyun knew about him, but he shouldn't conclude that he has a chance of winning just because his blades are not working against him. Tae-hyun was shocked to hear that. It's as if Han Sang-do knew his thoughts. Han Sang-do gave him advice. that he should know that the world doesn't go according to his plans. Han Sang-do disappeared from his sight. Tae-hyun instantly knew that he used the stealth skill. He assumed a combat stance in preparation for the hidden enemy. He instantly turned to look at his backside. He punched the air and declared that Han Sang-do's attacks are useless against him. Unbeknownst to him, Han Sang-do was actually behind him. He was caught off guard when he revealed himself and asked him if he's sure about what he just said. He instantly turned to block the blade. Unexpectedly, his hand bled. He was surprised to see that his stone-covered hand was bleeding. Han Sang-do laughed at him. Han Sang-do is preparing for another attack while he asks Tae-hyun if he knew about the number of guys that he hunted that were just like him. He's pertaining to guys that made a mistake by thinking that their skill is invincible. He asked him if he's flustered to run away now that his weakness has been exposed. He cut Tae-hyun from all sides. Se-hyun clenched his teeth as he endured the consecutive attacks that rained on him. Han Sang-do told him that he should understand that all skills have weaknesses. With his last attack, Han Sang-do left Tae-hyun bleeding from different parts of his body. The blood was scattered on the floor. Kim Tae-hyun was catching his breath. Deep inside him, he started to realize the flaw of the stone skin skill. He now understood that the stone skins are not ideal to totally block the attacks, since unbearable shock would crush the stone, and the cursed part would be replaced with the formation of a stone of remarkably lower durability. It dawned on him that Han Sang-do was actually aiming for that since the start. Upon gazing at Han Sang-do, he had a menacing aura, and his eyes appeared to be really intimidating. But Tae-hyun was still able to smile because of what he learned. That hand-to-hand fight is still doable even against a B-ranked opponent. With that, he can say that his physical abilities aren't those of an average D-rank level. He asked Han Sang-do if they should end the fight now. Confusion washed over Han Sang-do's face. He started laughing and mockingly asked Tae-hyun if he went mad after being driven to a corner. He advanced towards Tae-hyun at full speed. Tae-hyun asked him if he knew why he wanted to meet him, but Han Sang-do chose to dismiss him. Instantly, a red hue was reflected on Han Sang-do's wide eyes. He witnessed Tae-hyun using his power as Se-hyun revealed that his intention was to take his stealth skill. Han Sang-do wondered about the wicked mana that he felt. He got annoyed to know that Tae-hyun was hiding that, but it seemed like he's not threatened at all. He laughed and even called him an idiot. He activated his stealth skills as he feels confident that he can't hit him when he can't even see him. But Tae-hyun seemed to be unfazed. Instead, he reminded him of what he said earlier, that all skills have weaknesses. Tae-hyun seemed to realize something after he had devoured monsters several times. There were monsters that seemed to escape his sight. But, in the end, nothing escaped his predation. He told Han Sang-do that wherever he hid or wherever he ran away to, he informed him that predation will gobble him up no matter what. All of a sudden, Han Sang-do let out a scream. Tae-hyun's red blades ripped off his body into pieces. The sun had started rising, illuminating the whole city with its warm light. An Hin-soo can be seen laying face down on the ground. He cursed and regretted that he was stabbed by the villain. Even if he's called with many titles such as the Hero of Justice or the Invincible Warrior, he still can't defy death. The giant ogre appeared before him and it roared loudly. It made a loud noise as it lifted its clenched fist. And it roared again as it punched An Hin-soo. The attack caused so much smoke and debris in the area. It made loud noises as it waited for the smoke and dust to clear out. But to its surprise, An Hin-soo's body is not in the area. And a voice spoke commenting how An Hin-soo is totally flat on the ground. It was Tae-hyun, and he used his stealth skill to save An Hin-soo. The giant ogre heard him and turned towards his direction. Tae-hyun smiled while his aura covers his body and he uttered that it's no wonder that An Hin-soo is on the ground since it was comfortable. The bright light of the rising sun covers the dark sky. A man and a woman were surprised as they opened the door. Wang Jae-young called out his mom and dad and announced that he's back home. Tae-hyun asked his uncle if everything's all right. Tears fell from the eyes of the old couple. They were so relieved that the monsters didn't harm the children. Jae-young laughed and told them that nothing happened. The old couple told them that the house was a mess as if someone ravaged the place. Jae-young insisted that nothing happened and even asked Tae-hyun to agree with him. Tae-hyun decided to not say any comments. From a bird's-eye view, the rooftop of different buildings can be seen. A person watched the news on his mobile phone. The news announced that as per the guidelines of the government, The gate break warning has been completely lifted. In addition to that, the news also stated that the government considered the possibility of a subsequent outbreak, and with that, they ordered nearby schools to be closed for a week. And as news of survivors is gradually coming in, the public is breathing a sigh of relief. The man ensued earlier, and the two women who were with him can be seen wearing hospital gowns as they pass through the hospital's corridor. The nurse, Choine Young, is explaining to the police how she woke up in a department store without any recollection of going there. Meanwhile, An Hyansu is on a live broadcast to announce that he is not the one who took down the giant ogre. He revealed that the true hero is someone else. The news continued to announce that the giant ogre's corpse wasn't discovered and the whereabouts of the villain who attacked the public are unknown. People are concerned that the preventive measure for safety purposes may be insufficient. The person who's watching the news decided to turn off his mobile phone. That person was actually Tae-hyun. He's happy to know that he has not been mentioned in any of the reports. With a confident and excited expression, he looked at what's ahead of him. He is standing on the rails while looking at the dark tunnel as he declares that he's ready to advance to the next stage. His status window had been updated with his newly acquired skill. Now he has 3 skills, including the D-rank stealth that requires 5 mana. For him, acquiring stealth was an especially great outcome, but due to his current level, he finds it difficult to use all 3 skills, since recklessly wielding the skills could deplete his mana in no time and thereby raising his fatigue level. It could end up a devastating move. So, he thought of preventive measures, and the best one is to have potions. Potions are elixirs created for various purposes such as mana or fatigue recovery, but he had an issue to deal with. Potions are expensive, thus he decided to hunt to earn money. He went inside the tunnel and his path was blocked by debris. He went through a small crease to proceed. For him to hunt, he needs legal permission. Actually, the law states that using skills without legal permission is considered illegal, so it left him with a single option. After going through the narrow passage between the wall, he was able to arrive at this destination where multiple gigantic monsters gazed at him. The only solution that he had is to explore undiscovered dungeons. The monster spoke and asked how a mere mortal could come in their place. Another monster wondered how the mortal found them. One monster suggested that they should paralyze the mortal so they could have a feast. Tae-hyun heard all their statements. He commented on how they are such great talkers. He wondered if those monsters are of high intelligence. The notification window showed that the monsters are called the Spider Sisters and they are of B rank. He expressed how B ranks are not enough to increase his ranks. He wondered if he needed to eat hundreds of them to reach his goal. The Spider Sisters got triggered with this and decided to attack the arrogant human. One of the Spider Sisters had puffy cheeks, and in unison, they told him that they are going to eat him alive. And simultaneously, they spit out a purple substance on him. The Spider Sisters laughed as if to mock him and asked how he felt. They asked if he felt himself becoming paralyzed. To their surprise, their victim is unaffected. Tae-hyun's skill called Resistance has been activated. Tae-hyun seemed to be pleased with the Spider Sisters' useful skill. The Spider Sisters screamed for him to wait, but it was followed by them groaning in agony. A notification appears stating that he has succeeded in a complete predation. He had obtained a new skill called Paralysis. One of the tall buildings in the area is the headquarters for the new South Korea Player Association. 2 men guard the wooden gigantic door. Inside the building is a woman who is holding a coffee, and 2 men. One man seemed to be nervous. He is Go Tae-wook, the deputy manager of the new South Korea Player Association. A player is defined when an awakened player is legally permitted to use their skills for various objectives such as abyss exploration, dungeon clearing, and so on. Currently, there are 5 player centers of the new South Korea Player Association. New South Korea's largest guilds, or also known as the 4 Great Guilds, are the Fighters, or also known as Undivided, the Crafters called Alchemists, the Mages called the Magicians, and there's the Informants called Nightwalkers, and the authorized agency that manages the players, including the 4 Great Guilds, is known as the new South Korea Player Association. And in front of the deputy manager is the guildmaster of the Nightwalker, and also an S-rank player called Yu Aiyong, and a man who thanked Yu Aiyong for coming, whose name is Ji Jin-wai. He is the chairman of the new South Korea Player Association and an S-rank player. He asked Yu Aiyong if she discovered something. Yu Aiyong confirmed if he was pertaining to a malignant guild. A malignant guild is a criminal organization formed by the most brutal fellows even among villains. The guild members wear gold rings with 3 skulls carved on them. He handed her a report about the recent movements of the malignant guild and a list of players that they were targeting. Yu Young told him that she's definite that he didn't seek her just to receive a document. So, she straightforwardly asked what he needs from her. He laughed and asked her if she had any ideas. He admitted that he wanted her opinion on something. He proceeded to ask her when she finished the player test. She's confused by his question but opted to answer truthfully that it was when she reached the qualifying age at 19 years old. Then she realized something, and the chairman asked her if she thinks a high school student could rival a monster in a fight. The high school student that might be the main topic of their conversation was busy sitting on top of the pile of the bodies of the monsters. His backpack is full of crystals from the monster. He's talking to someone in the phone, asking them if they are the alchemist. With a bored expression on his face after defeating a whole bunch of monsters, he revealed his agenda to them. He wanted to buy potions. The 7-day school closure order from the gate break ended. Kim Tae-yoon was occupied during that time. Together with Hwang Jae-young, he had physical training. Aside from that, he also cleared some dungeons. Inside the building of alchemists, one of the 4 great guilds, someone was shocked seeing so many mana stones. With that, they regarded their customer as their sweep and coaxed him to trade with them. So that's one of the tasks of Tae-yoon during the school closure, potion trading. Despite that, his overall rank is at C. That includes a ranking of C in skill, stone skin, stealth, and paralysis. He knew he had a long way to go, and yet he still has to go to school. Out of curiosity, his classmates asked him if he had awakened since they heard a rumor that he beat up Bae-hyuk-soo's lackeys. Another classmate added that whatever the case is, Tae-yoon is in big trouble, because things had already escalated. A group of students came rushing to them. Tae-yoon noticed them. These students caused commotion by throwing and breaking the chairs. They are extremely angry. One of them sat down and casually propped his feet on the table. It was Lee Jung-jae. He told Tae-yoon it's been a while, old friend. Jung-jae awakened as an S rank. He is the 3rd-generation Shable of the Taesan Group, the conglomerate that sponsors Taesan High School, the boss of all the Taesan High's bullies. Tae-yoon recalled how he was pushed against the wall before. He took a closer look at who the bullies were, and among them, he saw Jung-jae smirking. Jung-jae is the main culprit who ordered Bae-hyuk-soo to harass him for being unawakened. Tae-yoon forced a laugh by having someone like Jung-jae as his friend. He intimidated him as he told him to cut the crap and fuck off. One of Jung-jae's lackeys got triggered and called him a bastard as he asked Tae-yoon if he really knows who he's talking to. All of a sudden, a fist met this student's face. Jung-jae punched him and asked him if he did not see that they're having a conversation. Jung-jae's attention returned to Tae-yoon. He told him that he understands him if he is still in high spirits after defeating Bae-hyuk-soo. He released a ball of fire in the air as he advised him to be more careful in acting up in front of him. Kim Tae-yoon was flustered and amazed as he witnessed the power of an S rank awakened. Jung-jae warned Tae-yoon to better listen while he's being nice. Deep in him, Tae-yoon wondered how Jung-jae would face predation. But then, a girl interfered and told Jung-jae to stop. This girl crushed the hand of one of Jung-jae's lackeys who yelled in pain. It was Liam Ah-young. She also told Tae-yoon to stop. Tae-yoon continued to observe her. Ah-young wore many hats such as the class president and Yu Ah-young's half-sister. She is also described as a rich family's young lady, a model student, AS rank awakened, the prospective first-ranker next term noblesse oblige, future S-rank player. She had countless nicknames and is expected to earn even more such nicknames. But Tae-yoon has one problem with her. She's uncompromising as fuck and won't just simply back down. Jung-jae acted innocent as he told her that it's like she's insinuating that he's doing something bad. He defended that they're just friends having a chat. Ah-young was skeptical of that and asked about how a friend could punch a friend in the face. Jung-jae warned her to watch herself. Ah-young responded with a threat that she will use force if he didn't leave on his own. He demanded that he quit it and get lost. Tae-yoon watched them both as they used their powers to intimidate each other. Deep inside Tae-yoon, he would like them to stop because at that rate, the whole classroom will be a total mess. Jung-jae glared at her. While Ah-young didn't back down, Jung-jae broke the tension as he turned away and invited everyone to just stop as he had no intention of fighting, and he faced them again while releasing fire in his hands. He asks them if that's what they're expecting him to say, and he prepares himself to throw a huge fireball towards Young. But the school bell suddenly rang. It shocked the three of them, and they heard the announcement from the broadcasting club through the speaker. The announcement was that there's a special lecture that will be organized by the Players Association in the main hall. So all students are expected to assemble there immediately. They repeated the announcement twice. Because of the sudden interruption, the fire in Lee Jung-jae is slowly being extinguished. He returned on glaring at A Young. A Young returned the gaze while she anticipated his attack. He scoffed. As he leaves the room, he tells her that she's lucky. They close the room's door with a thud. Once they're fully out of sight, A Young asks Taehyun if he's okay. She was about to tell him that he doesn't have to thank her, but he's no longer at his seat. She was surprised that he's already at the door. Taehyun asked her why she's still standing there and if she had not heard the announcement to assemble in the main hall, and then he told her that he will be leaving first. A Young was left dumbfounded. She wondered if Taehyun had always been that way. After a few moments, in the main hall, students were curious about what the lecture is all about, especially it's coming from the Players Association. They wondered if it was related to the gate break. A person on the stage started speaking. He introduced himself as Go Tae-wook, Har Deputy Manager of the Player Association. He announced that he's there for two reasons. One is to apologize for the Players Association's lack of response to the gate break and to provide safety training. And it was followed by the second reason. This is to inform everyone about the changes to the player tryouts for those individuals responsible for shaping the future of the new South Korea Player Association. Upon hearing that, Jung-jae got triggered and cursed Taehyun. A Young took a mental note to speak with Taehyun after the ceremony, while Taehyun, without knowing anything, nonchalantly yawned. The students talked among themselves. They couldn't comprehend how the player tryouts concerns them, especially that the tryouts start at age 19 and they couldn't even participate in that. Taewook heard them and acknowledged that they may think of it that way, but he also revealed that now it would relate to them. He explained that due to the recent gate break outbreak and the steep rise in the number of monsters and dungeons, the Players Association has recognized that they are understaffed. Therefore, starting from the tryouts, they will be allowing nomination even for high school students. The students were surprised to hear that. Taewook continued to explain that nominees from each school will be selected based on a combination of factors such as ability, assessment scores, academic record, and behavior. But in Taehyun's mind, he thought that these are all lies. He knew that the tryouts are open for high school students, but the selection process is already underway. That is through Taewook's skill. It's called the Observer's Eye. Observer's Eye is able to quantify the sum total of the subject's abilities. Upon focusing, it even allows the user to view the stat window's information of the target. Taewook continued to speak while observing them. Above each student's head, he sees numbers, and he thought these numbers are far better than the other locations. He knew they would make great players, but the most shocking even among all of them are those two students. Lee Jung-jae, who has a value of 1,924, and Liam A Young, who has 2,335. He recalled that Nightwalker sent him a list of recommended candidates, but he still can't believe that there are so many untrained awakenings. He was pleased with that, and he got excited to write up some recommendations as soon as he got back. Jung-jae raised his hand to catch his attention. He was surprised and confused with that act. Jung-jae said that there are some candidates unfit for that. Taewook wondered what he meant by unfit candidates. Jung-jae explained that player tryouts are meant to assess people suitable to be players among the awakened. In other words, what he's saying is that he doesn't believe that a mere unawakened person needs to hear the lecture. And he looked at Taehyun as if to say that he is pertaining to him. But strength is not all that makes a player. Whether it's the rank of awakening, ability to handle different situations, or vast knowledge about the abyss. To become a player, a number of complex skills must be assessed. Jung-jae spoke again. He mentioned that in the end, all those complexities originate from the awakened, and he looked at Taehyun as he continued to say that for an unawakened, it's nothing but a salt in the wounds. Some students can be heard laughing. With a hint of annoyance, Taehyun realized Jung-jae is willing to go that far to confirm whether he awakened or not. In his mind, Jung-jae is provoking Taehyun to prove it if he is awakened. A Young was about to scold him, but she stopped mid-sentence as she imagined that Taehyun would act rudely to her. She turned her back and willed herself not to care. Jung Jae expressed to Taewook that they should send the unawakened out of the hall as soon as possible. Taewook answered that he understood him, but it's up to the student to decide if they want to attend the lecture. Jung Jae addressed Taehyun and asked how he's not humiliated when it's not like he can get nominated as unawakened, and he further asked if he doesn't give a shit about player tryouts. Taehyun smirked. In his mind, certainly, without proving himself as an unawakened, he can't even get a peek of the player tryouts. But he also knew that to get recommended, he doesn't necessarily have to show that himself. Taewook closely observed those three students. He thought of Jung Jae as pathetic for being an S-rank player, and yet he's bullying. And then his attention went to Taehyun, an unawakened with unknown latent rank as per the student department. He sees him as a pitiful existence in the midst of being awakened. Yet when Taewook used his power, it states that information could not be verified, and that caught him off guard. Taehyun spoke and told Jung Jae that he's right. He added that what use would it be for a lowly unawakened to attend such a lecture? It would only hurt their pride. Jung Jae was both shocked and confused by Taehyun's response, and then he announced something. He will get the fuck out of there while showing his middle finger to Jung Jae, and he told everyone to stay locked up in there and attend the oh-so-great lecture. This angered Jung Jae, while Taewook couldn't get over the shock of his observer's eye not working on Taehyun, especially since even with the chairman and Yoo Young, it had never happened. So, he couldn't figure out why it happened with a kid like Taehyun. He watched Taehyun's back go closer to the exit, and when Taehyun was about to open the door, Taewook continuously got the notification that the information could not be verified. And then Taehyun faced and smirked at him. His eyes widened in shock. He saw a white figure with long white hair, and on top of that, Kim Taehyun's numbers at 5096. It was almost sunset. The hallways of the school are empty. The library was quiet. While Taehyun sat on mountains of books while reading, shadow of three men appeared in front of him. He told them that he figured he'd spend the rest of the day looking for clues about the king, and he gazed at those men with serious eyes, and told them that it's not like hell finds something in there anyway. One of the guys announced that Jung Jae is looking for him, so he should go with them. He flipped a page in the book while asking them what if he says no. The guy smirked and asked to confirm if Taehyun's aunt runs a restaurant. This caught Taehyun off guard. He was confused. The guy told him that Jung Jae has a message for him, and the message was that Taehyun is a pathetic orphan, and he asked Taehyun if he wants to give his aunt a hard time when she's already struggling, and he told Taehyun not to worry because they will drag him to Jung Jae anyway. But the guy couldn't finish his sentence because there was a sudden explosion in the library. It was so loud that it shattered several bookshelves. That guy was groaning in pain as the hand around his neck tightened. Taehyun continued to choke him, while the other two guys lay unconscious on the ground. He told the guy not to make him ask twice. He tightened his grip on the guy's neck as he inquired where the bastard Jung Jae was. The main hall is now empty and quiet. Taehyun found Jung Jae and a man that appeared as he's a bodyguard because he's wearing his suit and tie. "This is surprising," the man said. Jung Jae asked him what he thinks that is. The man is using his powers, and he informs Jung Jae that he has been casting a couple of status effects. He is Seo Hundo, an A-rank player, and Jung Jae's bodyguard. Hundo reported to Jung Jae that the status effect is not working on Taehyun. He concluded that with such great resistance, Taehyun is probably an A-rank awakened. Jung Jae expected that Taehyun had awakened. Jung Jae said that he should have a chat with his friend. Taehyun is pissed off, but he remains quiet. Jung Jae admitted that his words may have been crude, but he clarified that he has no intention of hurting him. In fact, he wanted to scout him. He explained that he's going to form a guild after he graduates as the heir to Taesan Group. And he acknowledges that even a genius like me can't do everything on my own. He asked Taehyun if he's following, and he told him that he wanted human talent, not some bum like Beichi Yuksu. But they are really talented people, just like the current Taehyun. Jung Jae was elated when he encouraged Taehyun to forget his old grudges and work for him. He told him that not only wealth and honor, but he can even get his family out of that shitty life. Taehyun responded, "What a load of shit." He uttered wealth, honor. He turned his body into a rock, and with a serious expression, he told Jung Jae that he had crossed the line. Jung Jae was left dumbfounded. He sighed as if he remembered something. He unleashed his power while saying that dogs have to be trained. A magic circle is being drawn on the floor. Seo Hundo yelled room. Room is a binding skill that envelops a space in magic. Outsiders can't detect the magic inside. The whole area is covered with a translucent bluish barrier. Hundo announced that with that, nobody from the outside will find out about his young master's fight. And now all that's left to do is for him to enjoy the scene. Taehyun rushed towards Jungjae with his stone fist, while Jungjae's fist is covered in flame. Their fist collided, creating a whirlwind of air in the center. Jungjae's fist is pushing Taehyun backwards, which made Taehyun groan in pain. Jungjae advanced towards him for another attack, and his punches caused a massive explosion. It looked like a volcano erupted. Taehyun was heavily injured as he coughed up blood. Jungjae laughed and taunted him by asking if he already knew his place. Hundo stood and watched from afar as multiple explosions happened because of the fight. He's feeling sorry for Taehyun. He assumed that Taehyun is a high-grade body-strengthening skill user and an A-rank awakened. With combat skills and mental power, it's surprising from a student. He thought that Taehyun must have had a hard time finding a reasonable opponent. But Taehyun's opponent now is Jungjae, and that made Seo Hundu have a proud expression on his face. Taehyun is caught off guard with Jungjae's continuous attacks. Jungjae grinned while emitting yellow light on his hand. Seo Hundu describes Jungjae as the epitome of intelligence S-rank. In his mind, he assumed that Taehyun had no chance of winning, and he could have just learned his place and given up. But then he saw something surprising. Taehyun evaded the attack. And it happened again, until he found his chance to attack. And then he found the chance and a fist landed on Jungjae's face. The punch was so powerful that Jungjae crashed to the ground with a massive impact. Hundu couldn't believe that. For him, it was impossible for his young master to be overpowered in a close combat fight, and he wondered how on earth. Jungjae stayed on the ground as he cursed loudly. He asked Sehun what he did to him since he can't move his body. Seo Hundo stood there with his mouth gaped open from the shock that his young master couldn't even move. He looked at Taehyun and thought that he must have had another skill aside from body strengthening. Taehyun is grinning as he announces that finally, it's working. Hundu wondered what the hell he did. Our Mikaz acquired a total of 3 skills through predation: the stone skin, stealth, and paralysis. Kim Taehyun didn't utilize all of his skills from the start. C-rank paralysis can't easily pierce through S-rank resistance, and stealth immediately disarms far-reaching fire attacks. Predation is a last resort and shouldn't be used lightly. So, Taehyun's objective was accumulation of paralysis in close combat. Status effect skills have a greater effect when dealt in direct blows rather than from a distance. So, with damage dealt by continuous blows of paralysis, even with the high S-rank resistance, it was a series of paralyzing and successfully resisting it until the body can no longer resist, and that led to the downfall of Jungjae. Seo Hundu stood frozen in shock. He thought of Taehyun as a genius, especially that in a head-on battle, Taehyun surpassed the young master's level. Taehyun watched Jungjae laid on the shattered ground. Jungjae laughed and admitted something, that he underestimated him too much. He rationalized that if not that, there's no way that he'd lose to a piece of shit like him. He took out a purple crystal, and then with just his fingers, he crushed that crystal. Taehyun was baffled upon seeing this, and a gigantic skeleton with glowing yellow ribs appeared. Lee Jungjae announced that he will fight him seriously. The gigantic skeleton, which is covered in flame, is chasing Kim Taehyun. Taehyun evaded its attack while running away from it, until he stopped in his tracks. He turned around and prepared for a counterattack. He raised his fist covered in stone, while the gigantic skeleton mirrored him, which also raised its fist that was covered in flame. They clench their fists and collide with each other. Taehyun's fist passed through the flames surrounding the fist of the gigantic skeleton, and the stones in his hand are slowly being dispersed. This contact caused a massive explosion that sent him flying backwards. He yelled loudly in pain as he crashed to the ground. Seo Hundu carefully observed the gigantic skeleton looming over Taehyun. He wondered if what he's seeing is the true form of his young master's flame of hearts. He's flustered as usual. It would be difficult to draw out his young master's true powers at S-rank. However, earlier, the young master used a mana-amplifying stone. It is created by refining a mana stone, which is the monster's core. It temporarily amplifies the mana. With that stone, the present young master can also draw out his true S-rank powers. But there's one problem. So, he encouraged his young master to stop now. He sincerely asked if the young master was planning to kill Taehyun. He tried to reason with him by saying that the magic power is still too much for the young master to handle, and that will cause the blood vessels in his whole body to burst from the surge of magic. In response, his young master released a flame. To his surprise, it was directed at him. Lee Jung-jae told him to shut up. He felt annoyed that a mere bodyguard like him dared to order him around. Taehyun slowly stood up while coughing. Jung-jae told his bodyguard that that piece of shit humiliated him and asked him if he just wanted him to let it slide. Our MC was surprised when Jung-jae yelled, "Stop your bullshit," loudly and made his gigantic skeleton release a powerful attack that blasted Taehyun away and shattered the ground. Jung-jae laughed as he screamed for Taehyun to die. Seo Hundu realized that the situation isn't good. He ran towards Taehyun. As he expected, the young master is not in his right mind. He wondered how Jung-jae would handle the consequences. When he came near the hole where Taehyun's is, he couldn't see anything, so he yelled loudly to ask Taehyun if he's still alive. He encouraged him to give up the fight and run away. He extended his hand to the hole on where Taehyun landed as he informed him to move quickly while he stops the young master for him. But his kindness was returned with violence when Taehyun unexpectedly punched him. The punch was powerful to send him flying away. Through the smoke, a silhouette of Taehyun emerged into view. He asked, "Run away. What on earth are you talking about after starting the fight yourself?" He admitted that S rank is truly different. He then consumed potions that restored his fatigue, stamina, and mana, and declared that from that moment, he's going to be serious about it. Dark, ominous aura was oozing from our MC's body. Meanwhile, in the Players Association office, Go Tae-wook is reporting to his superior. Ji Jin-wai was extremely surprised upon hearing such high numbers. Tae-wook confirmed that Lee Jung-jae is at 1900 while Lee Ma-young is at 2300. So there's no doubt that the two of them are both S rank. The other staff who heard it also couldn't believe it, since even if they are at S rank, it's impossible for an untrained person to awaken at 1900. That already made them at the level of an A rank player, which makes him at the level of Japan's Saintus. Someone laughed at amusement with the thought of having a Saintus in South Korea. The Saintus is one of the leading players in Japan. She's a monster whose stats surpass 2500 and is already at first inspection at the age of 19, and even in her case, she barely surpassed 2500. Because of that, Tae-wook thought about Kim Tae-yoon and his stats at 5096. He wondered what's the deal with it. It sent chills to his spine. He considered the possibility that it might be a hallucination, or maybe a skill error. He left the office and walked through the hallway. He's now determined to check Taehyun for himself. Back in the main hall, Seo Hundu was utterly shocked. He was kneeling on the ground and wondered how it was possible. Taehyun immobilized the gigantic skeleton by releasing a chain with a thorn that covered the monster, and it slowly extinguished the gigantic skeleton's fire. Jung-jae yelled, "How can this possibly be?" He asked how he can be overpowered by a scumbag like Taehyun, especially since he's the heir of the Teeson group and on top of that, he's an S rank. This angered him. He yelled loudly, "I am Lee Jung-jae," and this desperation made him summon every last of his power. But Taehyun just asked him that no matter who's heir, or what rank he has, why the hell does it matter? He smirked as he prepared to launch another attack. Jung-jae was caught off guard on what he saw. The entire area is covered in red smoke and a figure appeared over them. Taehyun told him that this is the king's power, and several rays of red light came rushing towards Jung-jae. He saw it coming, but he failed to flee. Thus, the attack had hit him. It was quiet outside the main hall, but the silence broke when the main hall exploded loudly from the attack. The main hall was wrecked, and Jung-jae was left unconscious on the ground. Seo Hundu couldn't stop his body from shaking. Taehyun uttered, "Well, this is a surprise." Seo Hundu is blocking him from reaching Jung-jae's body. Taehyun didn't expect his A-rank player to drag Jung-jae out in the middle of predation taking effect. But it doesn't matter since Taehyun still acquired the skill. Seo Hundu asked him what he's planning to do. He continued to say that his young master is the heir to Taeyasin, so he asked Taehyun how he is going to deal with the aftermath. Taehyun responded that he's being shameless, and asked him again who was the one who picked a fight. Also, Taehyun scoffed and added that he looked like someone who will cower from a threat like that. Our MC told him that even so, He shouldn't worry since he has no plans on killing Jung Jae. In return, Taehyun told him that it's only right that he receives a price for Jung Jae's life. Seo Hundo was caught off guard. Taehyun said that in name, Lee Jung Jae is the heir to the Taeyosin group. He smirked and announced that he should get at least $1 billion. Outside the main hall, the students gathered and watched as it was being reduced to ashes. A teacher instructed them to get back. The students wondered if it's some attack by a villain or a monster. Part of this crowd is Lee Young. She knew that wasn't the case since the feel of the magic and the fierce flames is familiar to her. She was certain that it was Lee Junja's power. She wondered who on earth was he fighting. She envisioned him bullying Taehyun, which made Taehyun at his mercy. With that in mind, she rushed towards the scene. The teacher was surprised with her sudden action. As she dashed towards them, she had been filled with regret for thinking wrong. She knew she shouldn't have been a simple bystander in the main hall. She blames herself while worrying about Taehyun. She wished for him to make it out alive. Meanwhile, inside the building, Jung Jae is still unconscious. Taehyun stood there right next to his body, and that was the scene Young witnessed when she arrived inside. Kim Taehyun told her that she came at the right time since he needs someone as a witness. He immediately corrected himself and told her that he needs someone to help him move Jung Jae. Young was dumbfounded from the sight before her. Taehyun instructed her to take Jung Jae to the nurse's office, or rather, the hospital. She immediately approached Jung Jae's body as she asked Taehyun on what's going on. Taehyun played dumb and uttered, "What the hell did he do for him to be knocked out like this?" He suggested that Jung Jae must have fallen down the stairs. Young finds it suspicious. Taehyun told her that this has nothing to do with him, so she should handle Jung Jae. He told her not to tell anyone that she saw him, and then he announced that he's now leaving. Young yelled wait and demanded a proper explanation. But Taehyun has already been out of sight. Young was so confused. She was left speechless. Meanwhile, Taehyun had gotten far and watched the sky for smoke from the main hall. He thinks that the situation turned out great since Young will handle Jung Jae and the Taeyosin group acted on their part too. So, everything had been settled. He then remembered something and opened his status window. He's still at rank C, but he now has a charm stat. It was at 5, and he received the Monarch's Heart at C rank, which boosts party members' stats. It consumed 10 mana. He was surprised to see the charm since it's an appearance stat for celebrities. Funny enough, he somewhat felt annoyed receiving that after praying on Jung Jae. He also noticed that the skill that he got isn't Flame Heart, but Monarch's Heart that boosts party members' stats. He didn't know that Jung Jae had a skill like that. He smiled as he thought that it's great, since skills that affect the entire party are rare, regardless of rank. As someone like him who will be using multiple skills, the Monarch's Heart, which allows any skill to be combined, is way better. For Taehyun, it was unimaginably awesome. While walking on the sidewalk, several black cars surrounded him. This surprised him. Several men alighted the cars, and the man said finally, "Found you, Taehyun." It was Go Taewook accompanied by several bodyguards. He told Taehyun that he has several questions for him. Taehyun wondered why that guy appeared in front of him. Taewook told him that he will ask the first question. With an intimidating aura around him, he asked Kim Taehyun what he did earlier in the main hall. At nighttime, inside a mansion, a man was holding his glass of liquor and asked, "What's your point?" He spoke that his one and only son is in the hospital, and as if that wasn't enough, Taehyun asked for $1 billion for his son's life. On top of that, it was requested to deal with the whole matter quietly. The dogs beside this man kept barking. Seo Hundo trembled as he apologized. Seo Hundo admitted that he had nothing to say for that. The man answered, "Do what he wants." Seo Hundo wasn't expecting that. The man laughed and commented that Taehyun is quite a guy that piqued his interest. However, he uttered that there must be a worthy reward for the price that they will pay. Seo Hundo was about to beg the man he called Mr. President. He told him that the opponent is still a young kid, and that would be far too cruel. The man told him to stop and threatened him that he would not tolerate a barking dog. This man is Lee Jung-soo, an S-rank player and the president of the Taeyosin group. At night, in a peaceful neighborhood, the black and white brothers were unconscious and tied up side by side. Kim Taehyun and Go Taewook observed from afar while the bodyguards watched over the black and white brothers. One guard spoke how daring these brothers are for meddling with association players and even dared to harass a high school participant. The other guard added that the bastards are getting braver. Taewook thanked Taehyun for informing them. He inquired if he has any clue on who's behind the attack. Taehyun stared at him and replied that he doesn't know. Taewook entertained the idea that the list of participants has been leaked. He planned to request additional guards for the others. In his mind, Taehyun thought that it's best not to tell them about the Taesan groups, since instead of it being properly dealt with, it would only give him more problems. And the most important to him right now is not the Taesan group, but the fact that he was notified that his physical ability is not sufficient and therefore predation skill is not available due to overload. He wondered what curse skill is that lack of physical abilities to the point where he couldn't use his skills. He thought that it might mean that he has to increase his stats, but he has no idea how to improve his stats since increasing levels by hunting monsters requires predation. This is also the same if he would hunt awakened humans. Taehyun tried thinking what he could do next. One idea came to his mind, but this was really not the ideal way, but he had no other choice. Inside the Blackhead building, their logo looked funny because it's a black round ball with eyes and gigantic nose and skinny arms and legs. A girl named Yura welcomed the customers. She is a guide at Blackhead's main training center in New Korea. With a smile and a cute posture, she asked how she could serve the customers. Taehyun and Hwang Jae-young entered. Jae-young couldn't believe Taehyun planned to register in Blackhead, where both money and skills are valued. When Yura saw them, she thought they're just a bunch of kids. She called them kids and told them that it's not an ordinary training place. Taehyun gave her his black card and informed her that the two of them are signing up. She saw that the card was SUVIP, and she was surprised. Taehyun asked to confirm if that's enough verification. She couldn't believe that it's the alchemist's SUVIP card. She wondered why those kids have that. She thought that they could be kids of a high-ranking player, or maybe they're players themselves, but she knew that accepting them easily could bring some problems. She wondered what she should do. In perfect time, a man who's showing off his muscles said that Yura is in a dilemma. And then this man told the kids that their place is not a place that they could just simply enter through the use of money. That man is a B-rank coach called Iron Strongman. He is a Blackhead member and known to be a rookie killer. His skill was muscle augmentation, and one of his traits was that he renamed himself. Jae-young was impressed with that man's name. He asked his older brother what they should do. But for Taehyun, it was a strange name, and he thought that maybe that man is stressed. Other members saw their interaction and gossiped among themselves. They pity the newbies for being approached and falling into the hands of Iron Strongman. Iron Strongman, still showing off his muscles on his half-naked body, asked the kids if they saw how people screamed when they heard his name. So, he suggested that it's better for the kids to leave. But he was cut off mid-sentence when Taehyun asked him what he's talking about, when those people are just weaklings. That made Iron Strongman's eyes sharpen and gave him a serious look as he asked, "What?" Jae-young and Yura were surprised at what they heard. Iron Strongman asked if Taehyun is saying that he is stronger than him. Taehyun told him that it's up to him on how to interpret that, and if he doesn't trust him, they should just make a bet, and the loser will pay a year's membership fee. This provoked Iron Strongman, making him laugh out loud. He called Taehyun ignorant and suggested they should begin. They entered a new world where their bodies became pixelated. This new world was filled with monsters. Iron Strongman challenged Kim Taehyun to prove his worth. It's akin to a video game. They're seated, wearing headgear, while people watch their journey in the new world on a big screen. Hwang Jae-young recognized that the location is the Abyss. Yura explained that they are using a virtual training program called Virtual Porter. Virtual Porter sends the player to a virtual reality similar to the Abyss, and one has to carry a heavy load, defeat B-rank monsters, and reach the goal in the short time in the training competition. It is a common method used in training centers for ranking, but they find it very unfair when Kim Tae-hyun goes up against Iron Strongman. This one laughed out loud as he thought that he would surely win this fight. Iron Strongman yelled that a young man dared to bet against him, especially when his skill of muscle augmentation is unmatched in a fight, and also in movement. He bragged that his skills don't have any defect in Virtual Porter. On top of that, his lift is on a much different level, and he assumed that he would win and get to train for a year for free. But then, a bright light caught his attention. Taehyun moves so fast that only a trail of light can be seen. and the surrounding monsters are instantly defeated. He continued forward despite the monsters blocking his way. In just one big movement, he defeated most of them. He attacked them with a powerful kick. The monsters didn't even have time to counterattack. He immediately finished them off. Taehyun is feeling confident. He continued to attack the rest of the monsters that seemed like they're just waiting for him. And with that, he reached a 999 combo. Iron Strongman couldn't believe it. Taehyun told him that he only planned to attend for 30 days. With the heavy weight on his back, he admitted that it was a pretty tough workout. The onlookers were shocked while Hwang Jae-young stood with pride as he stood there holding a banner that said, "I believed in you." Taehyun faced Iron Strongman, who was far behind him, and told him that he won the bet. He added that he should pay up and get lost. 30 days have passed since the announcement of the changes to the player exams. The day that has been long awaited has finally arrived, the player license test. The host abode the helicopter as she announced that the Players Association has made a change by allowing minors to participate through recommendations. Participants of various ages from all around the country have gathered in the association exam hall. The famous Awakeners are known as unmatched in close-range fights, such as Iron Fist or Hong Jung-wook, an A-ranker. There is also Druid or Lee Gilsan, an A-ranker that has an incredible battle sense that makes S-grade afraid of him. The famous unmatched in Bizan called the Thunder God, Shin Yeon-bok. A grade SE is also present. A girl rumored to have the highest recorded merit among candidates for the exam is a Saintus-level prospect named Lim Ah-young, an S rank, and there are other uncountable talents scheduled to participate in the test. A girl is out of breath and complaining that the location is very far. She knew that if she failed to report, she would be fired. She is a new Sci-economics journalist called reporter Kim Ji-ja. Her skill is typing and her purpose is interviewing and taking photos of exam candidates. She's way behind the line, and she knew that because of that, she won't be able to interview candidates and take pictures. She complained that being in grade E is useless. Taehyun is walking behind her. She turned to him when she heard him cursing and complained that there were so many people. He complained loudly that with that kind of crowd, the test taker couldn't enter. Reporter Kim Ji-ja clearly heard the words test taker. She looked at him while he's being stressed because of the crowd. He uttered how much it sucks. She recognized him as one of the candidates. She approached him to ask if she could interview him. From a bird's eye view, people were like ants around the association hall. Kim Taehyun is being called by the staff since the test is going to start in a few minutes. He explained that he was almost late because he had a sudden interview. He told her that he will be right there and he planned to build his image from the start. There were lots of examinees, and they all had a badge with their number. They looked around, and they were surprised. Even A Young is shocked. Taehyun noticed her staring at him. A Young did not expect him to be there. Taehyun was also shocked to bump into her and addressed her as the class president. She asked him what happened to his body, and he explained that it was because of the bit of training that he had. Ah Young doubted what he said. She knew that he had awakened, but not like this. Especially that Taehyun changed so much in just 1 month. Then she proceeded to ask what happened to Lee Jung-jae last time. But her question was not answered as they were interrupted when they heard an announcement. The person addressed all of them as the young heroes who bear the future of the new South Korea, and congratulated them for being there. The person speaking is displayed on multiple screens. He told everyone that they are in the first trial place for those who aspire to become players, and he informed them that he will be explaining the rules. He instructed them to look at their chest since there should be a number on their trial card. In the first trial, they are asked to collect 5 cards including theirs, which means if they don't have any card, they are out. That first trial is called the exam ticket scramble. They have a time limit of 1 hour, and every method is allowed except murder. The players were surprised by a sudden shift in the room when the whole layout had changed, and with that, the man announced the start of the first trial. Examinees were running around and adjusting to the new layout of the room since there are only a few platforms that are separated from one another. Lee Ma-hyung is alone on a single platform, and the examinees saw her and several of them rushed towards her. One of them suggested that if they don't want to be targeted, they should attack her first. But A Young remained calm and serious as she released her power. And then she makes a large ice crystal that makes the other examinees scream. The staff of the association watched them. One man commented that Lee Ma-hyung is truly a promising Saintus-level candidate since she has a very impressive capability. He also noticed that other candidates cannot be underestimated since their respective abilities surpassed those of the previous examinees. Another man commented that one noteworthy candidate is Thunder God, an S rank from Busa, Shin Yeonbok. 20 minutes has passed since the trial started, and there is not a single attack or method that worked effectively against him. The staff were truly amazed with their abilities, especially with Shin Yeonbok and Lim Ah-hyun, who are far more superior than others. But this guy was busy looking at someone else. Go Tae-wook witnessed how the other staff was amazed. He thought that it's natural for Yeonbok and Lim Ah-hyun to attract attention since their ranking is high. But to him, who had seen it all, he knew there was an unbelievable stat from Tae-hyun. So he trusted that he could dominate the trial easily. He silently rooted for Tae-hyun. He wished for him to show them what he got. He watched Tae-hyun engaging in a fistfight. This caught him off guard. He was a bit surprised and in panic. He screamed, "What the hell was happening?" Kim Tae-hyun is up against an A-ranker called Hong Jong-wook, who is using his iron skin skill, and Tae-hyun is using his stone skin skill. Tae-wook panicked and wondered if he had overrated Kim Tae-hyun's abilities since he is being overpowered by someone who is only at A rank. More so, Tae-hyun has not even avoided a single attack. But that made Tae-wook think twice. He considered that it was intentional. Tae-hyun advanced toward Jong-wook with a smile. He was met with a powerful punch from Jong-wook. Jong-wook was pissed off and asked if he's doing that to mock him. He yelled that stone skin is way lower than iron skin. He asked him how he could just face him head-on and deliberately suffer a meaningless attack. But Jong-wook's face paled as he heard Tae-hyun comment that he talked too much. Tae-hyun answered that's exactly why there's a meaning to it. A notification showed that Tae-hyun has increased 1 stamina and 2 charms. It had been a month of practice, but the seal of predation remained integrated, and he took that as being less capable. And the best way he thought to improve his skills through training is to stimulate the body until it reaches maximum capacity. It means that fighting even when one almost reaches his limits can also be called the best training method. So, he continued to fight Jong-wook. They exchanged punches, and Tae-hyun was stubborn to continue with his so-called training. He seems to be thrilled despite his injuries. The iron on Jong-wook's face disintegrated, and he called Kim Tae-hyun a damn monster. A few moments later, he fell to the ground and stayed there. Tae-hyun won their fight and retrieved Jong-wook's card. Now he owns 2 trial cards. Tae-wook witnessed that and laughed out loud. He commented that it's truly abnormal. The staff noticed him and commented that he seems so happy, and they thought it was because the candidates are truly promising. He recognized the intense training that Tae-hyun did during the survival game. He uttered that he is truly unbelievable. RMC's boldness even sent chills to his spine. However, there's still a problem with doing this. Even if he did that to improve his skills earlier, the fight had consumed too much stamina. In Tae-wook's mind, Tae-hyun should save stamina for now by collecting cards from weaker participants is the best strategy. But unexpectedly, it did not go that way. He was shocked by what he saw. The staff were also confused on how this C rank can challenge someone stronger than him. They speculated that this candidate wants to give up. Tae-hyun stood on the platform while the other guy confidently faced him. It was Yeonbok. He asked him who he was. Currently, Yeonbok has already accumulated 147 cards. Tae-hyun didn't answer Yeonbok's question and asked him how many tickets he has. Our MC even tried to count them but gave up halfway. He grinned and uttered that as long as Yeonbok has more than 5, then it's fine. Their fight had started. It caused a massive explosion. Tae-hyun barely evades Yeonbok's thunder. Yeonbok continuously rained thunder on him, to which made Tae-hyun focused on running and evading, until he decided to cover his foot with stone. And when he found the opportunity, he went to attack Yeonbok with a powerful kick, but his foot was blocked by thunder. Yeonbok commented that Tae-hyun is incredibly fast, and his fast movements made it difficult for Yeonbok to see the attacks. Their fight continued. Tae-hyun kept a bit of distance from Yeonbok. He observed the Bizen's S-ranker, Thunder God, and he admitted to himself that he's a bit difficult to deal with. Yeonbok is covered with lightning and he blocked all of his attacks. In addition to that, Yeonbok is able to fight at close and long range with his radiant and destructive power. Tae-hyun wondered, in the situation that he can't use predation, how is he going to break him? Yeonbok noticed that he had stopped moving and asked why he didn't attack. Yeonbok taunted him to come at him. but Taeyun was caught off guard. Yeonbok went for him instead. He barely dodged Yeonbok's fist covered with lightning. But Yeonbok did not stop there. He used his hand again to attack, and Taeyun tried to keep a distance from him. Shin Yeonbok laughed as if he was excited to catch his prey. As he released a powerful thunder towards Taeyun, he asked him if he thought that he could run away from him. The attack electrified Taeyun, which made him scream loudly in pain. Yeonbok was elated and mocked him that since he's asking for a fight, he shouldn't run away. Taeyun groaned as he tried to protect himself by covering his body with stones. He made a huge stone on his hand and yelled as he prepared for a counterattack. Yeonbok broke that stone while calling him a moron. And then Yeonbok released a blinding light. That made Taeyun close his eyes. And when he opened it, he saw Yeonbok coming right at him while he's falling from the platform. And the Thunder God's hand was already charged. He was surprised at what he saw, because Yeonbok released full power in his direction. Taeyun groaned in pain as the thunder covered his whole body. Yeonbok laughed at him. He was impressed that Taeyun could take that attack. Yeonbok never thought that there would be a person like him. All those times, everyone was busy running away from him. He thought that in the player trial, only Lim Ah-hyung could entertain him. But to his surprise, there's another one. He was elated to have found another toy. Because of his distraction, he didn't realize that something was coming at him at full speed, and it hit him directly at the center of his forehead. He was confused for a moment, and he looked at Taeyun while wondering what happened, because he expected that Taeyun's attack wouldn't work against him. And then he was caught off guard with another consecutive attack that hit him in all sides of his body. He groaned in pain. Stone skin can't penetrate the Thunder God's fury, even if it is forced until it reaches its limits. It can only be broken due to incredible pressure. But in that place, the player trials arena, it's different. Because the arena is made to withstand even awakened strength, and unlike stone skin, it does not disappear even if it is destroyed. So, Taeyun thought of using it as a weapon, with the hopes that he could just break through the Thunder God's fury. He approached Yeonbok with a knowing grin. Yeonbok was pissed off and called him a cowardly bastard, and Taeyun's fist directly hit Yeonbok's chest. That made Yeonbok's eyes roll back. To Taeyun, Yeonbok is nothing to him. Shin Yeonbok coughed up blood. Taeyun was smiling. The staff couldn't see clearly because of the smoke, but they couldn't believe that an S-class lost against C-class. They wondered what kind of person Taeyun is. In his mind, Taewook remarked how Taeyun makes people worry, but he's still a pretty great guy for him. But then again, he was confused with Taeyun's actions. Taeyun collected 3 trial cards from Yeonbok, and he declared that all that was left for him to do is to wait for the test to finish. All of a sudden, an ice shard appeared. It directly attacked him. It broke the platform on where Yeonbok's body was lying. Taeyun was surprised at what he saw. He looked at the sky and there was a giant snowflake, and an orb of ice is starting to form around the platform. He watched as the ice completely covered the area. It was like a barrier, and from the giant snowflake, ice shards appeared, and several more snowflakes formed around the orb of ice. Then Lim Ah-hyung showed up. She walked towards him in that enclosed area. Taeyun was dumbfounded, while Ah-hyung looked so serious. He wondered why Ah-hyung was there, and he wondered if she watched his fight. Ah-hyung expressed that she believes power has responsibility, and power without responsibility is just violence. She told Taeyun that he is really strong. She never thought that he could beat Yeonbok like that. Taeyun is still confused about what she is saying. With an intimidating expression, Ah-hyung assumed that he defeated Lee Jung-jae the same way. A look of horror washed over Taeyun's face. Ah-hyung started attacking him. She prepared several snowflakes above her head, and it rained ice. Taeyun ran and cursed from his annoyance that the ice is like a bomb. And if it continued, he knew hiding would be useless. He didn't sense that Ah-hyung was already in front of him. She kicked him and it hit him directly on the face. He was shocked and was not able to dodge the attacks. Ah-hyung told him that during that time in the gym, she believed in him, that he's a different person than Lee Jung-jae, that he will not act rashly just for his own benefit. She continued to beat him up. She prepared ice on her fist. She told him that just by watching him fight, she already understood that there's an end to both Lee Jung-jae and Bae Hyung-soo, and that was all his doing. She hit him with a large ice shard that threw his body off the ground. When the ice shard disintegrated, his body immediately fell to the ground and collided with an impact. Young reminded him that using skills without permission is a crime, and both of his victims are still lying in the hospital. And she informed him that she knew that he also suffered, so she would not report it. But she advised him to withdraw from the player trial, and told him that he doesn't deserve to be a player. Taehyun replied, "Who the fuck are you to decide that?" He slowly stood up and told her that she can't even stop the cruelty of Lee Jung-jae. So what the hell is she talking about power, responsibility, and qualification? He added that in the end, she just wants to beat him up by using player trials as her reason. He told her, "Don't be pathetic." Young was dumbfounded, and she confirmed if that's really going to be his answer. With that, she announced that she would no longer hold back. She made a gigantic hammer out of ice. This right here was her most powerful skill, and with a serious expression on her face, she declared, "I'll end it now." Kim Taehyun. Taehyun observed her. His expression was now more serious. The stone skin had been destroyed 100 of times and has long lost its function. And he knew that even if he uses stealth, the skill will be cancelled with the attack area. The monarch's heart is already active and is increasing his stats, but not enough to change the course of the battle, and predation is still sealed. Taehyun's remaining mana is not enough to cause paralysis in close combat, like he did to Lee Jung-jae. He knew he had one thing left to do. He dashed towards her. He wore a serious expression on his face. Young prepares to attack him using her gigantic hammer. Looking from the outside of the barrier, a bright light emerged from the orb, and it was followed by a massive explosion that collapsed the ice barrier surrounding them. Taehyun was left with that option. The staff who were watching wondered what happened since they couldn't see anything because of the fog. Taewook got worried for Taehyun, but he got confused at what he saw. It was the same with the other staff. They saw that there's a big hole in the platform, and when the fog slowly clears, Taehyun is on top of Liam A-young, and up close. Their lips are touching. A-young's eyes widened in shock. Since her lips are sealed, she internally screamed while being shocked and confused. What happened earlier was this. Taehyun dashed towards A-young. Then, she prepares to attack him using her gigantic hammer. She smashed her hammer, making the ground collapse. She intently stares at the area where her hammer is, but something unexpected caught her attention. It was Taehyun, and this guy leapt above the ground. At the crucial moment between life and death, Taehyun has only one goal in his mind, and it was a kiss. From the looks of it, it was something like that. But the purpose was different. It was a paralysis-inducing kiss. A stat-changing skill is more effective in close distance rather than long distance, and directed inward rather than outward, where the chance of success increases significantly. So, Taehyun combined paralysis into his blood and made A-young swallow it. Considering a S rank that has monster-like resistance, that act was a bet. And the result was as follows. Taehyun got off her and A-young remained in place. A notification showed that Liam A-young is exposed to paralysis and the resistance failed. And instead of being mad about it, A-young blushed. And since Kim Taehyun has done a fatal psychological shock to his opponent's mind, his charm has increased to 3. Our MC wiped his mouth after that kiss and smiled as his plan just barely worked, and then his attention was caught by something else. It has been announced that the first phase of trial is complete. They were informed that the medical team will now move the candidates to safety, and they have advised all candidates to wait and stay at their location. The announcement was repeated. With the completion of the first trial, all candidates who were injured were treated immediately by the medical team. Even though A-young suffered paralysis, she didn't lose her trial card and was still conscious, so she passed the first phase. As for Taehyun, he managed to get 7 cards, and his unexpected achievement of defeating Yeonbok and A-young has made him the center of attention in that trial. When he was walking in the hallway, he heard people gossiping about him. He didn't bother paying attention to them. Instead, he appreciated the recovery skills of the person who treated him. He wondered if he would get a skill like that later on. But then, he heard someone yell his name so loudly. It was Yeonbok, and he instantly attacked Taehyun upon seeing him while calling him a cowardly bastard. Taehyun blocked his attack with his stone-covered hand. He was surprised to see Yeonbok. Yeonbok warned him that he can use the same tricks in the location that they are currently at. Yeonbok continued to attack and attracted a crowd. The onlookers wondered if it was a revenge match. The crowd agreed that it's good for them if there's one less candidate, so they cheered for Yeonbok. Yeonbok screamed at them to mind their own business. He told them to shut up and electrified them. And then he invited Taehyun to have a fair match with him. He told him that if Taehyun doesn't have those lowly tricks, he can show him how superior he is to him. He kept laughing until it immediately turned to confusion. They both felt a strong presence, and it seemed like gravity pulled Yeonbok to the ground. He laid with his chest on the ground and the force continued to make him scream. Taehyun struggled as well and noticed something. A man had appeared. He walked towards them while commenting about inexperienced imbeciles. Shin Yeonbok kept screaming. This man continued to say that those are the people who can never let anything go quickly. Taehyun was alarmed to see this guy. And this man continued to express his frustration on the people who kept bragging without knowing themselves. Taehyun recognized that this man is the S-rank player, Park Sung-jin. He is one of the strongest players of the new South Korean Player Association and a prospective double S-rank player. Sung-jin noticed that Taehyun was still standing. He then raised his arm and released more of his power. Taehyun kept fighting the strong force to remain standing. He was already catching his breath. He cursed as he realized the extreme difference between awakened S-class and player S-class. He never thought that it would be to that extent. Sung-jin remarked how Taehyun is still standing even after that much power. Even veteran players can't stand it. He wanted to test him more, so he increased his power. All of a sudden, someone called Park Sung-jin and asked what he's doing. A doctor and a nurse run towards them. The doctor scolded him for attacking students who just finished recovering. He asked if Sung-jin is planning to get rid of them before the second phase even starts. Sung-jin defended that he's just disciplining him. The doctor told him that he's lying. He accused him for testing his skills in the name of disciplining them, and he does that every time. The doctor complained that he had enough of that. The doctor threatened him that if he did that again, he would be reported to the head of the association. Sung-jin asked Taehyun for his name. Kim Taehyun answered his name. Park Sung-jin recalled that he was the C-rank who defeated Shin Yeonbok and Lee Ma-young. That made him grin. He was pleased at the appearance of an impressive candidate after a long time. He pats Taehyun's shoulder and asks if he intentionally targeted S-rank players. He went off while saying to Taehyun that he will be waiting. Taehyun was a bit confused. The doctor and nurses chased Sung-jin out. It was a funny scene. After their recovery period, the candidates were again gathered. This time, they are in a forest. The candidates anticipated the next announcement. Sung-jin stood on the stage. He asked them if they all had rested. He announced that the second trial will begin. He explained that the location of the next trial is in the gate in front of them. The gate is a glowing portal that connects to a different space and dimension, and the candidates are off to a D-rank dungeon. Upon hearing that, the candidates were filled with fear and worry since dungeons have monsters. Sung-jin explained that each group consisting of 5 candidates will enter the dungeon through the gate. A team with a player assigned as a supervisor will explore the dungeon, and during dungeon exploration, all actions will be evaluated such as combat, observation, knowledge, and medical measures. Weapons and necessary consumption goods will be provided by the association. He instructed the candidates to take turns and enter the gate in front of them. The second trial is a dungeon. Even beginners who have no real experience should be okay in a D-rank dungeon, especially with a player, unless they unfortunately teleported towards the double dungeon called Apocalypto. Double Dungeon Apocalypto is at rank ES. Inside the D-rank dungeon at the second player trial location, there was the first double dungeon ever discovered. Including the first explorer party, a lot of victims were annihilated, which led to dungeon break in various undiscovered dungeons. Taehyun explored the idea of them preventing that, but the association will not possibly believe his words without evidence, and even if it was revealed, he will raise suspicions. In his head, he knew it was a shame, but he decided to focus on the task. And he thought that as long as he is not part of the first explorer party, there would be enough ways to survive. The wind blew as he entered the gate, and when he reached the other side, an uninterested expression washed over his face. A player announced that with his arrival, they now have 5 people. He asked everyone if they were good to go. RMC remembered this guy as Ma Do-hak. an A-rank player that will act as their supervisor for the second round of the tests. And a special note is that this player was the one who discovered the first double dungeon apocalypto. Taehyun figured it was the moment he knew. He fucked up. 3 monsters that looked like they were made from mud and stone attacked the candidates, but they fought back using their own unique skills and successfully defeated the monster. Their supervisor clapped and praised them. He told them that they were impressive. He added that such decisive combat intuition, despite this being their first real battle, makes them fit to be called a player. The candidates were flustered and humbly told him that they did it because of his supervision. Deep inside, Taehyun is pissed off for being in that team out of all the teams out there. He was unlucky to be part of the first discovery team. Upon looking at the Ma Do-hak's ring, he was certain that it is the unique item that the first discoverer of the double dungeon was wearing. It is called the Sage's Ring. It is unique for it boosts strength, stamina, speed, mana for 10 times. With that, Taehyun was certain that the double dungeon, Apocalypto, is definitely an S rank. And he knew that if he gets swept in, his current self, whose predation is sealed, won't survive. With determination, he planned not to let them find the Apocalypto. Their team then came to a stop. The path diverges, and they asked their supervisor, Ma Do-hak, on what they should do. Do-hak told them that it happens all the time when exploring dungeons. He suggested that they should take a majority vote, but before he could finish his sentence, Taehyun bolted at the speed of light. They were all shocked. Do-hak scolded him for acting on his own since it's dangerous, so he advised him to come back. While running, he told them that it will be okay and encouraged them to go on the path that he chose. Deep inside him, he thought about why he would leave it to him to decide. As he thought about how he won't let that happen, he ran off like a child while telling them to come. His intention is for them to take a different route than before his regression. Kim Tae-hun jumps to a cliff. Ma Do-han was worried, but Taehyun urged them to follow him. In his mind, rather than letting them find Apocalypto, he would just rather die instead. Do-hak and the other candidates chased after him. He was elated for guiding the way, until he stopped on his tracks because there's a gate before him. They were all surprised to see a gate inside the dungeon, but Taehyun knew it was the double dungeon, Apocalypto. Inside his head, he cursed for going through a whole maze, yet that is where he ended up. A candidate then suddenly wanted to check it out. In panic, Taehyun ordered everyone to stop. His reaction elicited confusion from the team. He raised his tone and asked them if they couldn't see it at the first glance. He explained that another gate different from the dungeon's entrance is weird, no matter what angle it is. He suggested that they report an unusual incident before anything. He wanted to get the support of Do-hak in that idea. Do-hak replied that it's his first time seeing something like that. And as per the rules, Do-hak confirmed that reporting to the HQ would be the right thing to do. Taehyun let out a sigh of relief, but he was surprised with Do-hak's next statement. Do-hak suggested that they should go inside. Taehyun couldn't believe it. Ma Do-hak acknowledged Kim Tae-yoon's thoughts, but he explained that the mana that he is sensing from the gate, unlike its appearance, isn't dangerous. He added that besides, it's merely a D-rank dungeon, so even if something were to happen, he, being an A-rank player, is there to handle it. He continued to say that whether the association prepared the gate or it was an unusual occurrence, exploring it will definitely score the team good points. Due to his mixed emotions, he raised his voice and asked Do-hak if he's out of his mind. He reminded him of the rules of exploring Abyss. Do-hak cut him off mid-sentence. He laughed at the thought of the rules. He pointed a finger at Taehyun and asked if a member of a team who doesn't even know how to cooperate should be saying that. The other candidate's second demoted and blamed Taehyun for running whimsically. One of the candidates told him not to forget his place just because he's a little skilled. Another one added that he's being arrogant by retorting against an active player. Taehyun got angry. Do-hak concluded that everything is decided. Taehyun tried to protest and urged him to give it another thought, but Do-hak had already snapped his finger, and they saw a white light. It covered the whole place. It was so bright that only their silhouette was seen, until the light became smaller and they're no longer in that place. Taehyun was surprised and horrified. They all went through the gate. Do-hak was stunned at what he saw. As the other candidates looked around, they wondered if it's really a D-rank dungeon since it's strange. They stood in a large hallway leading towards a massive statue, and everything around them is covered in red glow. The massive statue at the end holds a sword. On a closer look, Its face is covered in a veil, and its eye sockets are hollow. The candidates question Do-hak on what's going on, and if he's really sure that it's a D-rank dungeon. Tae-hyun told all of them to shut up and look in front of them. One of the candidates was annoyed with him for being rude, but he did not pay attention and told them that something was coming, and he was right. Two figures are moving towards them, and these figures looked exactly the same as the statue. Upon seeing it, they recognized that it was an A-rank Death Knight, and they panicked. They wondered how those A ranks were there. Do-hak felt a sense of doom. He instructed everyone to get ready for battle. The Death Knights rushed towards them and sliced them with their swords. The candidates screamed in fear while Do-hak evaded the attack. He used his powers against those he called filthy monsters. Lava suddenly appeared below the Death Knights, and after a few seconds, the lava formed into sharp blades, and it pierced right through their opponents. The Death Knights groaned, but it had no effect on them. Do-hak saw that as a chance and told everyone to attack. He strategized and told them to use fire and flash at maximum to cover the monster's sight, and then he instructed the one with the shield to defend the front line, and then the rest should not give the enemy space, and to continue countering. The candidates exactly followed his strategy. The Death Knights laid on the ground. All of them were breathing heavily as they observed the bodies. The only female candidate uttered that they're finally safe. She added that no one would have thought that they would take down A-rank monsters. The other candidate boastfully expressed that it was no big deal and that he could take them on again. Unbeknownst to him, another Death Knight is approaching. When they sensed it, they all turned their attention to it. There were another 4 Death Knights, and they were all eager to attack the candidates. All of them had the same horrified expression on their faces. Meanwhile, Tae-hyun was busy inspecting the body of the defeated Death Knight. He felt that something was off. He looked at their bodies. Do-hak is catching his breath. He cursed in his mind when he noticed that every time they defeat one of the monsters, they came back twice the number. On top of that, the candidates were all exhausted. Everyone is at their limits, and he knows that if it continues, they will all die. Tae-hyun told Do-hak that something was off. He watched Tae-hyun's calm expression as he approached him. Do-hak wondered who Tae-hyun was. After all that fighting, Tae-hyun is not even tired, and he was the first to realize that the gate was dangerous. And on top of that, if it was not for Monarch's stats, the team's stats won't be higher, and they wouldn't have even lasted that long. He's suspicious if he was really a C-rank awakened. He then asked Tae-hyun what he meant when he said that something is off. Our MC admitted that he might just be guessing, but those monsters don't seem to be Death Knights. They were all shocked and rejected the idea. They questioned what they were fighting against all this time. Tae-hyun gripped one of the swords and answered that he's going to go and find that out. He also activated his stone skin upon touching the weapon. Tae-hyun has dashed right towards the army of the said Death Knights. He did not hesitate to approach them with an incredible speed. The monsters raised their weapons against him. The collision caused a huge explosion. The monster was confused. When the smoke cleared, Tae-hyun was no longer standing there. They didn't know that he was above them. Kim Tae-hyun ran above their heads, and when he found the right opportunity, he decided to attack. But he's not aiming for those moving monsters. Instead, his target was the statue. His sword was about to reach the statue. It pierced its head, and then the statue was shattered into pieces. But nothing happened, and the monsters were chasing him. All of a sudden, the monsters that were about to reach him from behind glowed, and they started disappearing. The whole area is being cleared of the gloomy red scene. Do-hak was shocked to see that everything they saw was an illusion. Tae-hyun confirmed that it is indeed an illusion trap. It's a trap that shows an imaginary space and enemies. It's a tactic to drain the intruder's energy. One of the candidates was annoyed with the idea that they struggled just because of a mere illusion. The female candidate dared to ask if something far worse will follow. Do-hak inquired on how Tae-hyun knew that it was a trap, especially that it's impossible that he fought with a Death Knight before. Our MC answered that even if he may not know much about it, and with a serious expression, he expressed that he knew there's no way that Death Knights would have been that weak. Do-hak was extremely shocked with Tae-hyun's statement. Tae-hyun encouraged them to get moving before they all got killed. They walk on a dark path and their only source of light is the power of Do-hak. Tae-hyun is supporting one of the candidates. The illusion faded, but things did not get any better. After the Apocalypto's manifestation, the dungeon's space was completely transformed. The injuries inflicted in battle against the illusion got worse, yet they couldn't just wait for rescue. Their only hope was to find the dungeon's exit. After a while, they saw something above them and Dohak declared that they found it. The door in front of them was so massive that they have to look up since they're close to it. The candidates find it suspicious and dangerous. But Dohak told them that if they don't open it, they know that they will just perish in that dungeon. The door was then slowly opened. Ma Dohak was the one that led their entrance. And from that little crease, he was surprised at what he saw. There were several skulls on the side, and at the center of it is a crouched knight being supported by his sword. It was the same monster as the illusion earlier. They were surprised to see a Death Knight. One of the candidates celebrated since there's only one, but later on, their purple halos glowed and revealed more Death Knights. The shock froze them. All of a sudden, the skulls on the side emitted fire that illuminated the whole room. It revealed that there were more Death Knights on the side, and the room had several floors, all housing Death Knights. An army of it stood before them, with a leader in front. They trembled as they took a look around. The pressure inside the room suddenly felt too heavy, because right in the middle there was a Death Knight sitting on a throne. It spoke and addressed the lowly humans who dared to come in there. This Death Knight had a glowing purple mask on one side of the face, and he announced for the battle to begin. This right here is the master of the Double Dungeon Apocalypto. He is the Lord of the Death Knights and is at S rank. The surrounding Death Knights moved. In perfect synchrony, they all pounded the tips of their swords on the ground. The Death Knights marched forward. The Death Knight that was in front pointed its sword at them. The candidates were confused on what's going on and why the Death Knight acted that way. Taehyun expressed that it looked like the knight wanted a one-on-one duel. They panicked upon hearing that. One of them complained that he doesn't have any magic left in him. Taehyun told them to calm down and reminded them that their goal is to escape, not to fight. But because of their fear, 3 of the candidates bolted. They claimed that they would rather go back to where they started. They ran for their lives. One Death Knight saw them and acted immediately. The slash went through Dohak and Taehyun as it was intended for those who were running away. It directly hit those 3, to which resulted in them coughing up blood. Dohak and Taehyun were surprised to see that. Taehyun was horrified. He yelled for his supervisor. He told him that they will buy them some time so he should go find the exit. But something unexpected happened. Dohak threw him and the other candidate he's supporting away from the door, and Dohak casted a spell. A wall suddenly appeared right in front of our MC. Taehyun panicked and asked what nonsense he was doing. Dohak told him to shut up and reminded him not to act so high and mighty as a low-level awakener. Taehyun was caught off guard and got confused. Dohak then admitted that he wanted to be an S-rank player, but no matter how much he trained and improved, he only felt farther from it instead of feeling closer. He expressed that he sees this as an opportunity for him. If he could resolve that special case, he might be treated almost as good as an S-rank, even though it ends up that way. Dohak followed that with a loud laugh. The Death Knight rushed towards him. He activated his magic and drew a triangle, and it sliced through the Death Knight. Dohak continued to speak with Taehyun. He told him that he's different from him. He hated to admit it, but he expressed that Kim Taehyun has the talent, and with that, he urged him to run away, to take the injured and escape as far as he can. He told him that it's the role of the supervisor to hold the enemies off. It was his duty as a supervisor at the magic school. Dohak gathered all his strength for a powerful attack. Taehyun couldn't believe his supervisor. He turned to look at the candidates. Our MC was still hoping to save some of them, but by the looks of it, they were already dead. An intense pressure then enveloped his body and his blood drained from his face, and at that moment, the wall behind him collapsed. He turned to see what had happened. Taehyun saw his supervisor face down on the ground, and the sword of the Death Knight pierced his back. Several Death Knights were lined up in front of him. The sword was deep in Dohak's backside. He laid there lifeless. Taehyun had a doomed expression on his face. The other candidates were also dead. Emotions overwhelmed Taehyun as he stood there frozen. The Death Knight removed his sword from Dohak's body and pointed that sword at Taehyun and invited him to a duel. Everyone's death haunts him. He just stood frozen with a sword pointed at his face. Moments passed, and none of them moved. Something caught Taehyun's attention. A shiny object was in front of him. It was the Sage's ring. He remembered that his supervisor wore it. and since they were getting no response, the Death Knight decided to slice him off. Taehyun's eyes were still focused on the ring. Right at the very last moment, he managed to evade the attack while retrieving the ring. He knew that this item right here was his only chance to make it out there alive. He wore the ring and begged. Taehyun begged it to wake up. The ring's red crystal glowed. The Death Knights had him surrounded. The ring's light grew brighter than it was already blinding. The Lord of the Death Knights was surprised, because in just a single move, the knights surrounding Taehyun got defeated. The whole area was suddenly painted with an ominous red glow. The Lord of the Knights was confused. He ordered his men to wake up and wondered what kind of power was that. A notification window had appeared. It announced that the Sage Ring has been equipped and all stats are increased by 10. It also announced that all conditions are met and the Seal of Predation is released. That changed Kim Taehyun's gaze, making him appear menacing. Starting from now, the real fight begins. A notification window informed him that he had equipped the Sage's Ring. All stats have also increased by 10. With that, all conditions are met. The Seal of Predation is released. Kim Taehyun's eyes glowed red. Dark auras started to emit from his body. Several corpses lay on the ground. Taehyun moved so fast that he disappeared in a blink of an eye. While rushing towards the throne, he blasted the surrounding Death Knights with his powerful attack. The other Death Knights rushed towards him in an attempt to attack from above. He concentrated his power on his palms in anticipation of this attack. He assumed a combat stance, while the Death Knights crowd around him. In his head, he estimated that the time to completely use his skill Devour is 10 seconds. With that, he knew that he can't solely rely on predation. He thought of all the skills he had gathered so far, and all the stats he had built up. He decided to use everything he has. It's his only way to survive. Our MC even imbued and surrounded a sword with his stone skill. He continued to fight for his life, but he was caught off guard. Suddenly, a massive explosion happened. Dust and debris covered the area. When it cleared up, it revealed a gigantic spear firmly embedded on the ground. Taehyun wondered what it was. Realization dawned on him. He looked at the throne and saw that it was the Lord of the Death Knights that threw it. Lord of the Death Knights was oozing with power. Several gigantic blades appeared on top of Taehyun. He muttered, "This is crazy," and the blades targeted him. It fell like rain, and every collision to the ground caused a massive explosion. Taehyun ran for his life. The scene was chaotic. Taehyun glanced behind him. He found the timing to leap high as the blades continued to fall from the roof. He was already feeling desperate. He yelled loudly as he continued to struggle and appeared in front of the Lord of the Death Knights. The Lord of the Death Knights prepared to attack him once again. The power of this lord started accumulating in the front of his palms. A spark formed out of thin air. And when it began to take form, it revealed a gigantic, dangerous-looking spear. It made Taehyun lose his balance and fall. While he was falling, the Lord of the Death Knights spoke to him. The Lord of the Death Knights told him that he was strong, but it was not enough. He claimed that this right here was a human's limitation. It launched its spear and created a massive explosion in the area. The ground was covered in smoke, debris, and the blades that collided with the ground. On a closer look, that massive explosion was actually the result of Lord of the Death Knights piercing Taehyun's body and stepping on his head. This boss monster then asked our MC one last question. It inquired on who gave him that power. Taehyun yelled in pain, but he did not answer, which led the Lord of the Death Knights to infuse more power on his blade. The notification window displayed that he resists the Night King's roar with a mysterious power, and he was partially successful in resisting. Taehyun yelled so loudly. The notification window displayed the same information again. Lord of the Death Knights revealed that he knew for a while now that Taehyun is not an ordinary human since he can understand their language. It then urged Taehyun to tell him the nature of his power. Our MC coughed up blood but continued to yell and resist. Consecutive "ah" can be heard from him, until his consciousness was gone and entered another realm where he faced Asmodeus. He took a closer look at the unmoving Asmodeus. He checked its face for any sign of movement. Taehyun had a sullen expression on him. He checked his surroundings and saw several bodies lined up on the ground on his left, one of which is Ma Dohak's body. He was surprised to see it. Little did he know that the Lord of the Death Knights was behind him. To Taehyun, It felt like nothing had changed since then. He started questioning the nature of the predation skill, and how come he, a human, understood the language of demons and gained power and opportunity without understanding anything. Lord of the Death Knights was ready to strike him from behind, while Tae-Yun was consumed with his thoughts that nothing has changed. Lord of the Death Knights released his attack without Tae-Yun sensing him. All Tae-Yun thought of was the reason why the king gave him the power. All of a sudden, he heard a voice which said that should have already been explained. He was surprised, and in front of him, a bright light emerged. From that bright light, the king appeared. The king answered all his questions by saying that everything was merely because of admiration to his will and perseverance. He told Tae-Hyun that he doesn't have to change. Tae-Hyun's shock expression remained on his face while he absorbed it all in. King told him to just move forward. After that encounter, he immediately opened his eyes. He's back in the real world where Apocalypto loomed over his body. The Lord of the Death Knights asked him if he now lacked the courage to speak. It called him a pathetic human as it planned to end Tae-Hyun. But the Lord of the Death Knights was in for a surprise. Tae-Hyun moved at the speed of light. He moved quickly and with massive power that he cut off the arm of the Lord of the Death Knights, and then he proceeded to attack the surrounding Death Knights. The Lord of the Death Knights observed him carefully. Tae-Hyun, who was standing in front of the Lord of the Death Knights, was oozing with power. This prompted Lord of the Death Knights to call him scum since he overloaded his skill to that point. Tae-Hyun yelled loudly as more power coursed through his body. The notification window appeared 3 times, indicating the increase of his magic power by 1. Lord of the Death Knights was amused by Tae-Hyun's final struggle. It ran towards Tae-Hyun, excited to see his end. It swung its dangerous weapon, and it encapsulated Kim Tae-Hyun with a powerful beam. It continued to release its power on this attack, while watching Tae-Hyun closely. But that attack seemed to have no effect on Tae-Hyun. Our MC asked the Lord of the Death Knights if he's still curious about the nature of his power. Lord of the Death Knights was taken aback. In response to Lord of the Death Knight's curiosity, Tae-Hyun taunted him to discover it for himself, which was followed by a potent energy gathering in Tae-Hyun's hands. A notification window displayed that the rank is changed to B. Tae-Hyun released the destructive power towards Apocalypto. This made Lord of the Death Knights yell from the agonizing pain. But Tae-Hyun did not stop there. He grabbed a weapon, and with menacing eyes he dashed forward and sliced Lord of the Death Knights several times using his weapon. None of his attacks were blocked. Lord of the Death Knights screamed. His anger rose. This led the Lord of Death Knights to produce several blades out of thin air. The Lord of the Death Knights couldn't accept that a mere human did that. It counterattacked with all its might, but Kim Tae-Hyun remained calm and concentrated on the power of his hand. He raised his fist while his power surrounds it. Slowly, his power around the fist began to take form. It extended like its forming limbs. But when he released it, it was a red entity with a wide mouth and sharp fangs. Lord of the Death Knights yelled as it saw its mouth coming closer. Tae-Hyun, with a fierce expression on his face, corrected the Lord of the Death Knights as he says that it's not human. He added, "It's the power of the king." And this menacing entity devoured the Lord of the Death Knights, completely erasing its existence. That caused a massive explosion in the air, and the notification window displayed that Tae-Hyun gained a new skill called Knight's King's Spirit. Meanwhile, on the starting area of the trial, people in ambulance cars were on standby. They carefully observed the portal. The organizers checked the remeasured power and found out a worrying result. It was S rank. Because of that, they issued an evacuation order. But the evacuation was delayed due to the dungeon's transformation. They wondered if the support troops could arrive before the dungeon break. Park Sung-jin was stressed out on the sudden appearance of an S-rank magic power in a D-rank dungeon all of a sudden. He knew that if the situation continued, everyone could die. That made him think that he has to go in alone. But to their surprise, there was another activity in a dungeon. It was a dungeon break. They did not expect it so soon. Sung-jin advised everyone to get ready. The dungeon emitted a bright light. Everyone waited in anticipation. Yet Sung-jin became confused when he saw the only person coming out from it. It was Kim Tae-Hyun. He uttered, "I barely made it back." Thanks to Tae-Hyun's efforts, the double dungeon incident was resolved. The students managed to evacuate without any significant harm. The second exam results were decided based on the scores before the examination. The bodies of the deceased were discovered and safely returned to their families, and they resolved another issue, that it was not to disclose who cleared Apocalypto. Go Tae-wook and Park Sung-jin listen as their superior informs them that the organization might face criticism from the media. But if they revealed the truth, Tae-yoon would become a target for the media and hunters. Tae-wook and Sung-jin answered positively despite knowing the risks. Ji Jin-wai thanked them. Then he proceeded to ask what the two of them were thinking. His question was about Tae-hyun, but as per their agreement not to disclose who it was, he corrected himself by saying the actual skills of the person who cleared the S-rank dungeon Apocalypto. Sung-jin considered that this person cleared an S-rank by himself. He assumed that the person is at least on the S-rank level. Tae-wook added that the person's actual rank is still much lower, so it would be hard to gauge the extent of the power. Ji Jin-wei had an inkling on where the conversation was going. Go Tae-wook and Sung-jin exchanged glances. They were all thinking of the same thing, that there's a high possibility that Tae-yoon, who cleared the dungeon, would become national power level, in the realm where the sun is blocked by a dark object and the sky is crimson red. Tae-yoon had a surprised expression on his face. Monsters were everywhere in that area, and they all seemed to be heading in one direction. Tae-yoon watched them from a cliff. He couldn't believe his eyes. He wondered why he was in the abyss, and then the king appeared in the sky, in front of the dark round object blocking the sun. King stood there, floating in the air. Our MC was surprised to see him again. But aside from him, the monsters also saw the king, and it made them enraged. King extended his hand, and on his palm a gust of wind gathered, and in a single attack, he instantly cleared a row of monsters. Tae-yoon watched as the bodies of the monsters turned into specks of light. He couldn't fathom that it happened, and he heard the king say, "I'll be waiting." The king started to rise up to the now white sky. Tae-hyun, with a surprised expression on his face, listened to the king. Before the king fully vanished, it stated that he will be in the deepest part of the abyss. Tae-hyun's stay at the abyss ended, and that's when he regained consciousness in the hospital. He was breathing heavily. He checked his body and pondered if what he saw was a dream, but he knew it felt too real for just a dream. He recalled that the king said that he would be waiting. He wondered what it meant, and then he thought of the predator that even S-rank monsters are wary of. Then, understanding the language of the monsters too, more and more questions from him arise. He thought that becoming stronger and going to the abyss is the only way. He then checked his status window. Right now, he is at B rank with a strength, speed, and stamina of 100. He now has the following skills, which are Predation, Stone Skin, Stealth, Paralysis, Monarch's Heart, and Knight's King Spirit. His suspicions were confirmed when he saw that he was at B rank and had obtained the Night King's Spirit. He had a hunch during his fight with the Lord of the Death Knights and was happy to see that he was right. He reached B rank, and with his stats, he is now almost on par with S-rank players. He remembered that the Night King's disposition is a skill that suppressed him with tremendous pressure. He knew that with the rate of his growth, becoming national power level isn't far off. All of a sudden, he heard a loud noise outside his hospital room. He heard someone scolding another person. The person being scolded opened the door and complained about not being able to freely visit a patient. The person added that the president of the association is being too much. When the door was fully opened, it revealed Yoo Young, and the guards in front of the door were defeated on the ground. She smiled at Kim Tae-hyun and uttered, "Darling." Out of the blue, they rode in a car. The driver was on the back seat and was insisting that he should be the one to drive, but the guildmaster dismissed him. Yoo Young was on the wheel, and Dae-hyun was on the passenger seat. She told the driver that he is her guest, so she will be the one to drive. Tae-hyun, while staring out the window, asked what she needs from him, given that she's the guildmaster of one of the major 4 guilds. Yoo Young made her answer light by saying that she wanted to see the kid who survived Apocalypto and drive him home from the hospital. Tae-hyun was dubious. He told her to come up with a more plausible lie. Yoo Young commented that Tae-hyun is a sharp kid. Then she asked if he knew how the third player exam is conducted. She explained that the third exam is similar to the survival test, like the first one, but unlike the first exam, outsiders can watch from the stands. Then she elaborated that Tae-hyun's skill will be revealed and surely the guilds will start coveting a lower awakened who can even defeat SR ranks. Tae-hyun kept listening. Yu Aiyong extended her hand to him while telling him that she will make an offer that he won't be able to refuse. She asked if what he wants is money or maybe fame. She assured him that she will give her what he wants if he joins the Nightwalker. Taiyun watched her with a blank expression on his face. None of them wanted to back down on their staring contest. While the driver on the back seat was feeling uncomfortable witnessing the tense situation, eventually, Taiyun answered that he was not interested. Yu Aiyong couldn't help but feel surprised. She expressed it when she said, "What did you say?" Upon arriving at their destination, Taiyun thanked Yu Aiyong for seeing him off. He told them that he will be walking from there, but Yu Aiyong did not easily let him go. She demanded an explanation on why he wouldn't join. She reiterated that whether it's salary or any other condition, she will give it to him. Then she started speculating that he already received an offer from another guild, or that maybe Taehyun did not fully understand her. Deep inside Taehyun, he finds the situation annoying. Taehyun explained that there's no special reason. He told her that there's no guild or condition offered to him. He inquired if Nightwalker's guild is really that special. In a confident manner, he told her that he's just saying no, just because he doesn't want to. He bid her goodbye. He happily descended the staircase, not sensing any danger or suspicious movements from Yu Aiyong. But a hand reached out, and she covered his mouth with her hand. It was like he was being kidnapped. He turned to look at him, and he saw Yu Aiyong furious and his power oozing out from her body as she asked him, "What the hell is your deal?" She told him that he's just getting started at becoming a player, and yet he dared to reject one of the 4 great guilds without a reason. She expressed that it made no sense. She removed her hand from his mouth, and she told him that she will forgive him. She turned his head to make him look at her while she stated, "In fact, I like you," in a seductive manner. The driver who witnessed everything panicked that she will cause him harm, so he reminded the guildmaster that Taehyun is still just a test taker, and then he scolded Taehyun for rejecting the guildmaster without any reason. He urged him to accept the offer since he'll have to join a guild sometime anyways. Taehyun grinned and commented how he had observed that the stubbornness was the same. He added that it was as he expected from Liam, a young sister. Yu Aiyong was taken aback. She mumbled on how he knew about that. Taehyun told her that he knew a lot of things and revealed that he knew about the stolen name too. Yu Aiyong froze in shock. This triggered her powers to become stronger. It was a peaceful, dark night. But that did not last long when Yu Aiyong released all of her power that was like a beam reaching through the sky, and it illuminated a wide area. With all of her strength, she grabbed him on his neck. The driver knew how bad the situation was. He knew the secret of their guildmaster. Yu Aiyong's real name was actually Lim Aiyong. Yuksung Group's CEO, Liam Chengyong, raised her, a child born out of wedlock, as an heir. But when another daughter was born into the family, her name, Lim Aiyong, was taken away, and she was reduced to an outsider. The fact that she changed her surname when she became a player is an information that only a few people should know. Yu Aiyong was furious. She told him, "How dare you yap away that nonsense in front of me? You're out of mind, aren't you?" Taehyun replied that she's the one who started it. That made her confused. Notification window displayed that a mysterious force is resisting the Amazon spirit, and the resistance was successful. Kim Taehyun released his power, and he removed her hand on his neck by squeezing it tight. A new notification window displayed that she is being countered with Night King's spirit, and the counterattack was successful. That made Yu Aiyong keep her distance from him. She watched him carefully as she pondered what kind of power he had. Her hand was already trembling just because she got repelled. She thought that, as if it wasn't enough that he was able to bear an S-rank player's powers, he also reversed it back at her. Taehyun's power slowly vanishes, and he looks at her. She was slightly nervous. He ascended the stairs and walked towards her. She was backed into the wall when Taehyun cornered her. And then, he warned her not to cross the line. With emphasis, he called her a young sister, Ms. Aiyong. She bit her lip in anger, but Aiyong blushed a little. The driver couldn't believe that Taehyun just said that. A day passed, and now many people are on their way to the Colosseum. The Colosseum, nostalgic of ancient Rome, is the venue of the 3rd round of player tryouts. Unlike the 1st and 2nd rounds that weren't revealed to the public, round 3 is allowed an audience. So, people from the industry, families of the test takers, and civilians are also in the arena as an audience to watch the tryouts. Yu Aiyong, disguised as a civilian, was present to keep an eye on Taehyun. Taehyun's uncle and aunt were also there. They are thankful to Taehyun because they could watch something like that because of him. However, they looked nervous. His aunt was worried since she heard that player tryouts are really fierce. On the other hand, Hwang Jae-young was so confident and proud of his cousin that he even made a customized shirt to cheer for him. He assured his parents that they don't have to worry since Taehyun is strong. With exaggerated moves, he narrated that he could take all of the participants in just one blow. He emphasized that it was just one blow. It was funny how Hwang Jae-young, a cousin of Taehyun, had become the president of Kim Taehyun's fans club, which currently only has one member. He was all fired up. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bench, the reporter was nervous. She took a mental note that she gotta get her hands on a proper news item this time. She is Kim Ji-ja, a Psy-economic rookie reporter, and she's on the verge of being fired. Her last interview got scrapped for featuring a low-rank awakened, and she assumed that Kim Taehyun, whom she interviewed, must have already been disqualified. Now she's worried about getting fired if she doesn't get a good interview this time. The person beside her commented that the atmosphere felt strange. She heard that and checked the arena. Taehyun was standing there, but a crowd of test takers kept their distance while also observing him. She took a closer look. She saw that there are countless high-ranking veteran awakened. And then there's also Lee Gil-san, the A-ranker who is a promising candidate. Ji-ja noticed that all these players were staring at just one guy. She speculated that they are trying to take down that one guy by joining forces. She wondered how strong the guy is for them to do that. With careful observation, she noticed that the guy is familiar to her. The round 3 of the player tryouts was about to begin, but one of the test takers wore a sinister smile. It was Kim Taehyun, and he maintained his smile even when he was already being surrounded. The announcer advised the viewers to be cautious of the shock while watching. The test had begun. Taehyun remained calm and confident. It even looked like he was thrilled. It was him versus the world scenario. And in his mind, he thought, nah, I'd win. When the go signal was given, the players immediately engaged in battle. Whether it is the men or women, they did not hold back, unleashing their power towards the center. That is where Kim Taehyun is. They worked together to get rid of him right away. They're wary of him since he had taken down 2 S-rankers alone since the first round. And they knew that if they don't eliminate him first, he'll take them all down. Amidst the concentrated power in the middle, Taehyun emerged. The other candidates did not expect him to withstand their attacks. Taehyun tightened his fist as rocks started covering it, and he punched the other candidate who took a direct hit. He punched the surrounding candidates too. Together with their teeth, the debris came flying, and with a powerful strike, he sent them flying. Several players coughed blood as they lost consciousness. Taehyun watched them as the smoke cleared. All of a sudden, he heard a rustling noise from the ground. And then from that area, vines appeared. And these bright green vines grabbed Taehyun. He wondered what that thing was. And then he heard the controller of the vines laugh. That person mocked him that even though he had taken down 2 S-rankers, having his guard down was not a great idea. This person with green hair declared himself as the winner of the test. He is Lee Gil-san, an A-rank genius. But those vines were easily destroyed by Taehyun. And once he broke free, he stomped on Gil-san's head. Gil-san groaned in pain. Assuming he had defeated Gil-san, Taehyun asked for the next contender. The other candidates called him a monster. They teamed up and planned to continuously attack Taehyun without stopping. They thought that if they keep attacking, it will exhaust Taehyun at some point. Kim Taehyun confidently pointed his fingers at them, and he activated the Night King's spirit. The other candidates charged simultaneously towards him, but they stopped on their tracks and was horrified at what they saw. They were pulled down by gravity and all of them lay on their stomachs while watching a gigantic skeleton before them. The skeleton made a loud noise, and the candidates felt the intense pressure pulling their bodies towards the ground. Even the audience and the members of the organization were surprised to witness this. Taehyun continued that force. Even the leader of a powerful guild felt it. Yoo Ah-young called him a lunatic for using that in the dead center. After a few moments, the smoke in the arena had cleared, and it was revealed that Kim Taehyun was the only one standing at the center. He let out a breath and assumed that everything had been wrapped up. He glanced at his side to check the remaining one. She saw an injured girl walking towards him. It was Lee Ah-young. She was breathing heavily. Taehyun asked what she wanted to do. He expressed that he won't mind it if she withdraws from the test. Lee Ah-young glared at him. Taehyun challenged her if she wanted to have a repeat of the first round. That made Liam Young blushed and embarrassed. She released her power. The ice had started forming, until it entrapped them in an ice dome. Taehyun thought this again? Liam Young brought out her spear, and she told Taehyun that he should worry about himself. She vowed that this time, that won't be happening again. This bitch was talking about the kiss. Taehyun dared her if she's sure about that. The whole area seemed cold with the blizzard. A trail of wind was left while half of Liam Young's spear was stuck on the ground. And the wind had moved her hair as she was falling to the ground while Taehyun stood beside her. She landed with a loud thud. She lost consciousness. She had met Taehyun's expectations, since in our MC's mind, she's still the most difficult opponent. And with that, the host announced that the player tryouts have ended. The crowd listened as the top qualifier of the player tryouts was announced, and it was applicant No. 920, Kim Taehyun. He was presented with his rewards for placing as the top qualifier. In a private setting, the chairman, Ji Jinwei, congratulated him on becoming an S-rank player. Jinwei expressed that he didn't expect him to single-handedly end the third round. Or rather, it is really to be expected from Taehyun to clear the Apocalypto. And the chairman laughed loudly. Taehyun replied that he was just lucky. The chairman observed him. He called Taehyun's name, and then he invited him to join the new South Korea Player Association. Taehyun was taken aback. Jinwei asked him for his thoughts on working for the new South Korea Player Association. Jinwei had a serious expression on his face. Our MC thought to himself how things have significantly changed, putting aside the fact that an awakened like him became an S-ranker and even placed as the top qualifier. He even got a scouting offer from not just a leader of a great guild, but also Ji Jinwei, the greatest in the new South Korea Player Association. He smiled as he assumed that he already knew the world, but then surprising things happened. However, Taehyun declined the offer. Jinwei, taken aback, abruptly stood and asked why. Taehyun replied that there's no special reason for it. He explained that he just believes that rather than being a member of one of the 4 great guilds of the association, he finds it more effective to work alone. He apologized for not being able to help the chairman. The chairman let out a loud "ha," and then he laughed out loud. He continued laughing while Taehyun peacefully drank his tea. Ji Jinwei sat back down as he expressed that he never imagined that Taehyun would say that he's better off alone rather than being in the great guilds or the association. He commented on Taehyun's level of confidence. He accepted his decision, and then he offered that they do something else instead of Taehyun joining the association. That got Taehyun curious. Jinwei grinned, and then he asked Kim Taehyun if he's interested in participating in the Asian Exhibition Games. Jinwei was serious with this offer. After that, we were transported to this place where several mobsters roared loudly, but they were taken aback when Taehyun easily sliced them with his predation skill. As the bits and pieces of the monster's body reached the ground, Taehyun sighed. With that, he had cleared the dungeon. He thought about the Asian Exhibition Games. This is an event where 5 representatives are chosen from the associations and guilds of each country within Asia. It is a festival of hunting down villains and monsters. But to be picked as a national representative, to prove that the person hunted down monsters and villains for the sake of the country, they would need to acquire some merit points. He recalled Jinwei telling him that given his history of advancing, it's definitely a worthy goal to target. But for Taehyun, it's easy for Jinwei to say. In his mind, he reasoned out that he just became a player. To catch up to the merit points everyone stacked over years, he has to hunt down monsters and villains that are way stronger. Taehyun has been clearing all dungeons known to the new South Korea Association for a month, but he's far from getting merit points, and wasn't able to advance any further. He looked at the portal and thought how he had no choice even if he knew it was dangerous. He decided to go inside after all. At nighttime, outside a mansion, a glass filled with liquor shattered. Lee Jung-soo choked Seol Hoon-do using his powers. Seol Hoon-do asked the president to calm down, but he couldn't. When Taesun's heir, his son, is still in the damn hospital, and the culprit behind that is now an S-rank player on the rise. In a fit of his anger, he powerfully threw Seol Hoon-do to the ground. Hoon-do yelled loudly from the pain of the collision, and then his eyes turned white, and he lost consciousness. The president's secretary came in to inform the president that he has a guest formed the Malignant Guild. When he heard the word malignant, he recalled that those were the rascals who couldn't get rid of one brat after stuffing money down their damn throats. He was angry, and he expressed how dare they show their faces here. He yelled that he's going to do something to them. However, out of the blue, he sensed something. The door in front of him became distorted as it emits an ominous aura, and a person appeared from the door. He expressed that the matter with Lee Jung-soo's son is truly a shame. Then he encouraged Jung-soo to calm down first, and then this person confirmed that the lowly brat isn't the final target of Tae-esen's group. This person introduced himself as the vice president of the Malignant Guild. He is known as Shadow, but his rank is yet to be known. Meanwhile, Tae-yoon's portal appeaappeared, and he emerged from it, and he was being welcomed by someone. In front of a tall building stood a man who held a sign. He introduced himself as Kim Tae-hyun's guide for the auction. He is an A-ranker from the Alchemists. With enthusiasm, he spoke his name, which is Park Jeon-won. Jeon-won is an A-rank player, hired as a bodyguard by the Alchemist Guild for the auction. He is also a member of Taeyeon's fan club, and his skill is gate manipulation. Park Jeon-won expressed that, after he had seen Tae-hyun overpowering everyone on the third round of the player tryouts, he became a fan. He asked for an autograph. Tae-hyun was dumbfounded. They are in the Asians auction region called East Point, the largest scale within Asia, and it has auction items of the greatest quality and an automatic interpretation skill support, and much more. East Point has a great deal of positive points, but even among them, the one point that's considered would be security. Tae-hyun asked Park Jeon-won if he's sure about having the autograph on his face. Park Jeon-won explained that bodyguards like him play a role, but the constant changing of warp points actually made it impossible to reach the destination without approval. Warp point is the coordinate value needed to connect to the warp gate, and that's the main reason why there were no security issues in the past decades. Tae-hyun thought that Park Jeon-won was right. East Point deserves to be called the best in security. However, our MC knew something that none of them could have predicted. An S-rank villain terror attack will take place in that very place on that day. After a while, the host of the auction was excited. Finally, the best item on sale for the auction is out. It's called the Phoenix Potion. Just drinking it will boost stamina and magic points by 20 each. Tae-hyun planned to wait for the terror attack, eliminate the S-rank villain, and get the merit points. But the problem is that he had no information about this. Before his regression, the news only reported the serious damage that East Point suffered, and the main culprit of the terror attack was Narendra Nairu, but he wondered who stopped it. Tae-hyun then called Park Jeon-won, who brought him ice cream. He asked who is the chief security. Park Jeon-won was surprised. Park Jeon-won was alarmed and curious why Tae-hyun wanted to know. Tae-hyun explained that he just had a question. He verified if he's not allowed to know. Park Jeon-won replied that it wasn't the case, but he's hesitant to answer. All of a sudden, someone uttered, "Look, who is it?" They were both surprised to see who it was. The man described Tae-hyun as the 12th S-rank player of New South Korea and the youngest S-ranker. Together with the man are people that look like his own army. The crowd watched them march in, and the man who spoke approached Tae-hyun. This man was pleased to announce that Kim Tae-hyun is there. This person is known as Isaki Ryohei, aka the Devil. He is a Japanese S-rank player and the East Point chief security officer. Tae-hyun asked Jeon-won who it was, which made him explain. Jeon-won whispered to Tae-hyun to be mindful. Jeon-won shared that Isaki Ryohei even stabbed his comrades for his own benefit, so the players call him the Devil. Isaki Ryohei said that he heard that New South Korea had sent an extraordinary genius, but he didn't expect to meet Tae-hyun in person. He reached out his hand. Tae-hyun carefully observed the hand extended to him. He wondered why it was a left hand. He shook his hand, but Isaki Ryohei released his power, and Tae-hyun got electrocuted. It became stronger, which made Tae-hyun groan in pain. Isaki Ryohei kept laughing. He was amused since he never expected Tae-hyun could endure that. It also shows that Tae-hyun is an S-rank after all. Tae-hyun cursed him in his mind, but his anger dissipated when he heard someone in pain. He saw that it was the people on the side. They were choking from Isaki Ryohei's powers. Tae-hyun cursed. He knew that if he fought Izaki Ryohei there, the civilians would get dragged into it. Izaki Ryohei expressed that his prank might have been excessive for a kid who just became an S-rank player. Izaki Ryohei let go of Taeyun's hand. He placed his arm over his shoulder and whispered that it should have been an enough lesson for Taeyun. He told Taeyun that he may be an S-ranker, but he is not on the same level as him. He added that he has no idea why Taeyun came there, but he warned him not to try any useless stunts, lay low, and to get lost, and he called Taeyun a brat. As he was pulling away, he laughed and wished him to have fun at the auction. As if to insult Taeyun even more, he laughed loudly as he was making his way towards the door. Park Jeonwon was worried about Taeyun. Izaki Ryohei's laugh still echoes in the room. Taeyun's expression showed a hint of annoyance, and he realized that because of Izaki Ryohei, it is going to be trickier than he thought. Few moments later, inside the building were armed men, and they were confused to encounter incoming unknown armed men. They wondered where those men entered the building. The leader of the authorized men told his subordinates that they don't have a need to know all that. The hallway that they are in only leads to the gate control office. So, he told his men that given that the unknown people are there, it means that they are the target that they are asked to be taken care of. The leader told his men to assist him as he takes out the infiltrators since he's the A-ranker. Few moments passed, and it showed the remnants of the fight and the corpses on the ground. Only one man was left standing. It was the old half-naked man with a turban. With him is a large monster that crushed the head of one of the enemies. The man groaned in pain as the arm of this monster swallowed his head. The old half-naked man with a turban was delighted. He is Narendra Nehru, an S-rank villain of unknown affiliation. His men informed him that a variable had come up at the auction house. The subordinate reported that Kim Tae-yoon, the S-ranker of New South Korea Association, is at the auction house. They asked what they should do about it. Nehru remained silent. He asked what was the matter with a lowly trash like that when he's present. And as long as he's there, he declares that no one can evade divine revelation. The scene then shifted towards this view of a twin building. And then, all of a sudden, the tall building was bombed. Inside that building, an auction with many people is ongoing. Half of the room was reduced to ashes because of the bombing. People who were relaxed were suddenly being blown away. The explosion was loud, and several more explosions on different parts of the building happened. Jeonwon immediately went to Taehyun's side. He checked if Taehyun is okay, and he urged him to evacuate at once. Taehyun was in a state of shock. He knew a terror attack would happen, but he had no idea that they would bomb all throughout the structure. He wondered how the terrorists were able to sneak in, and even the time frame on when the bombs were installed. He tried to remain calm and focused on what's important. The terrorists showed themselves. One terrorist instills fear by gunning the ceiling and commanding the people to lower their weapons and give them the money and valuables that people owned. He threatened them that if they resisted, he would shoot them in the head. But he was cut mid-sentence, and the next thing he knew, his head was no longer attached to his body, and Taehyun was the cause of that. Jeonwon was shocked. Kim Taehyun instructed him to inform the association of the situation and request for reinforcements. With a serious expression, Taehyun vowed to catch the person behind the incident. What he used earlier is a talisman with a rare rank. Ji Jin-yui, the player association's chairman, gave him that dagger for passing the tryouts with the highest score. On a different side of the building, the guards hold the fort even with their injuries. The leader of this group told the terrorists that the articles had been bid on already, and they're not for terrorists like them. The leader of that group of terrorists told his team to slaughter them all. They engaged in a bloody fight and killed all the guards. With the path being cleared, the leader of the terrorist approached the pile of stuff. He's about to grab one. He chose a container with a cap of the head of a phoenix, and it was what he had been aiming for. It was the Phoenix Potion, a unique item. It permanently increases stamina and mana by 20 points each when consumed. Upon holding that potion, he now understood why Nehru told them to get it, even if it meant putting their lives at stake. He sensed tremendous energy from it just by looking at it. He started to think of drinking that potion, but before he could do anything, an explosion happened that surprised him. It left one of his members dead. He was surprised and confused. Other members reported that there's an enemy, but they're confused because they can't see anything. The next thing they know is that they're being hit. They were slightly nervous. The next moment, they had lost their lives. The leader of the terrorists in that group figured out that the enemy used stealth skill, but before he could do anything, his body had already been slashed. He cursed at the enemy. He used his ability and metal chains appeared. The chains were deployed around the area to survey where the enemy was. The chains kept moving. It was in different parts of the room, until it had tied a man. He was mad at the enemy for daring to act up with nothing but stealth. He planned his revenge. The tied man was impressed that the guy had a skill that can locate even an opponent who uses stealth. It was Kim Tae-hyun, and he told the man that his skill would be perfect for predation. Meanwhile, on the other part of the building, several corpses of the guards lay on the ground, while several civilians had been tied up, with monsters surrounding them. At the warp gate control room, several warps are opened and surrounding it are several armed men and huge monsters. Nehru announced that it was such a simple matter. He announced that all people would fear him, the one they proclaimed their god, even more. He thought that all was left to do was the Phoenix Potion, but a subordinate came up to him. The man reported to Nehru that they received a message from Dyke's group who went to acquire the Phoenix Potion, and he told Nehru that there was a problem. Just hearing the word problem, Nehru was displeased. The radio was noisy because of its static sounds. Until they heard someone speak. This person asked Nehru if he was really that person. Nehru was alarmed. He asked the person on the other line who he was. Tae-hyun replied, "Me?" On his side was Dyke, who's already unconscious. Tae-hyun told him that he's the one who has what Nehru wants. It's true since he is holding the Phoenix Potion. He told Nehru that if he wanted it back, he should get there soon. And he called him a fucking terrorist. Nehru was triggered. The defeated men were scattered on the ground. Tae-hyun drank the potion. System informed him that his stamina had increased as well as his magical power. He determined that it was a unique rank potion, and its effect was really on a different league. With Tae-hyun roaming around the dungeon earlier, it hadn't had much effect on his stats, but the potion, it had increased his stats all at once. Now that he drank it, he doesn't have to worry about the Phoenix Potion getting into the hands of the terrorist. He heard several footsteps. It was Izaki Ryohei and his team. Several corpses lay there, but aside from that, the hall was empty. One of his team members was confused since the message came from there, yet no one was there. He wondered if the person who called them had run away, but Ryohei laughed at them. He told them that the person is just right in front of them. He told Tae-hyun to stop hiding. Tae-hyun reversed his stealth ability, while commenting how odd it was for them to notice when his ability was perfect. They stood face to face. Ryohei asked what someone like Kim Tae-hyun's caliber was doing there. Tae-hyun retorted back to Ryohei that what about the head of security like him who should be running around trying to clean up after the terror attack? Ryohei laughed, and he revealed that there's something he's looking for. Tae-hyun watched him. He sighed while getting something from his pocket, and he mentioned that he noticed that something was off. First, the fact that the security team couldn't find all those bombs despite having all the players as bodyguards. Tae-hyun saw the terrorists storming in through the east point where they can't enter without permission, and that led him to think that the terrorists had someone working with them from the inside. But no one would have thought that the head of security would have been the spy. Ryohei replied that he was kind enough to warn Tae-hyun to stay in his lane. Ryohei disappeared in front of them. Tae-hyun was alert. When Ryohei showed up, he had already attacked Tae-hyun. Ryohei demanded Tae-hyun to hand it over. Tae-hyun smirked at him and told him to try to take it like a villain should. They continued to fight while Ryohei's subordinates watched them, but the subordinates could barely follow them with their eyes since the match was intense because of the incredible speed of the two. The ground was shattering. Some of the stuff was sliced too. The subordinate did not even dare to move because they could have been caught up in the battle between S-rankers. One subordinate mentioned that Izaki Ryohei was called the Devil, so there's no doubt that they'll end up getting chopped into pieces if they carelessly interfere. Tae-hyun was being pushed back by Ryohei. Tae-hyun seemed to be having a difficult time. In his head, he is cursing at Ryohei. He also confirmed his suspicions. Unlike him, who only predicts the direction of attack through killing aura and sound, Ryohei can actually see him. He swung his sword. That caught Tae-hyun off guard, and Tae-hyun was slashed right on his chest. He groaned as his body bled. Tae-hyun recognized that even if they are both using stealth, there's such a huge gap in their proficiency. Despite his injury, Tae-hyun remained standing. He surprised the subordinates when he jumped really high to properly position himself in using his next ability. In his mind, Ryohei is not worthy for him to use the predation. The subordinates were surprised when they were lifted in the air by the purple smoke. Taeyun's arm turned into rock, and he hit all the subordinates with it. They groaned in pain and fell to the ground. After that, Taeyun looked for Ryohei. He laughed while commenting that it was some awesome judgment that Taeyun showed. Ryohei was on the ceiling. He told Taeyun that it was awesome of him because stealth was weak against wide-range skills. He added that Taeyun is looking for him. He should have used it over his head as well. Then he attacked Taeyun. Taeyun attempted to block the sword with his dagger. Terrorists were patrolling on a quiet hallway, but they immediately ran away when Ryohei and Taeyun emerged from the ceiling. Ryohei's attack was so powerful that it created a hole which dropped them to the lower level. Then Ryohei slashed through the whole room. It caused an explosion, and then he had Taeyun pinned down on the ground with his foot. He positioned his sword right at Taeyun's throat, but he was surprised. When Taeyun wrapped chains on his sword, he was confused about what it was. Taeyun told him that he's a fool. Ryohei cursed while his expression revealed that he's slightly nervous. He realized that Taeyun's skill earlier wasn't meant to find him, but it was for Taeyun to stop him running out of the skill's target range. Seiyun stood up and raised his arm. He asked Ryohei where he plans to run off to. The chains wrapped around Ryohei. That made Ryohei angry. He cursed at Seiyun. With chains wrapped around Taeyun's fist, he delivered a powerful punch at Ryohei's face. It was a powerful attack that created holes on the ground. After a while, Taeyun was able to chain Izaki Ryohei and his subordinates together. Some subordinates looked haggard and tired, while there's also some who were confused and angry. Ryohei was breathing heavily. He cursed at Taeyun. Taeyun replied that he doesn't understand why an S-ranker would do all those shitty things for some money. Ryohei yelled for him to shut up. He blamed Taeyun for ruining his plans. To shut him up, Taeyun stomped on his head, and then he kicked him hard. He told him that he's pretty chatty for a low-life criminal. The subordinates were worried for Ryohei. Taeyun demanded info about Narendra Nehru. He informed them that every country's association must have received urgent calls for reinforcements by then. As if a threat, he reminded Ryohei that Nehru would be done for once the reinforcements arrived. Ryohei laughed at the thought of reinforcements. Ryohei told Taeyun that he's just a clueless kid. Someone was running fast. The person entered the door, and that caught Ji Jinwei and Go Taewook's attention. The old man who just entered was in panic. He told them something about the reinforcements. He asked what happened to the reinforcements for East Point. This person is the Four Great Guilds Alchemists Guildmaster, an S-ranker, Seo Sanjik. He was in panic as he shared that not just their articles are up there for sale, but also countless VIPs of the new Korean Association had participated. He's worried that the villains will do something bad to those people. Ji Jinwei asked him to calm down. He explained that they had formed a backup force as soon as they heard the terror news. It was a group of elite players with player Park Sungjin leading them. Sanjik asked why those people haven't left yet. He volunteered his guild's personnel and supplies if that's what is needed, but Ji Jinwei told him that it wasn't the issue that they're facing. Ji Jinwei told him that they had no way to get there. Sanjik was confused. Taewook explained that the terrorists took over the control room for the East Point warp gate and blocked all the warp gates. Sanjik was utterly shocked. Taewook pacified him by telling him that it would be okay. He explained that there are 2 S-rank players at the scene. One of them was Ahyun, who just became an S-rank recently. But there's only 1 S-rank on the terrorist side. That made Taewook think that those 2 can hold out while they reconnect the warp gates. He even thought of the possibility that the 2 S-rank players could take down Narendra Nehru. Another person joined in the conversation and told them that the case would only happen if the opponent was a regular S-rank player. They were surprised to see who it was. It was Yue Yong. Back to our MC. Taeyun stood in front of Ryohei. Ryohei asked him if he knew about the skill called Contract with the Devil. Taeyun had no idea, and Ryohei explained that it was the worst of Nehru's skills. He added that by offering sacrifices, depending on the amount and quality, Ryohei Nehru can summon a monster of a certain rank. Taeyun figured out the sacrifices. Ryohei told him that he's right since there's no other available sacrifices. They are pertaining to humans. Yue Yong knew about it as well. And when she told the men in the room, they were extremely shocked. Ji Junwei couldn't even form a sentence. Tiwook stated that Narendra Nehru held roughly a few hundred hostages. Sanjik added that on top of that, Nehru is a notorious terrorist who is particularly skilled even among S-rankers. And if someone like him sacrifices 100 people and summons a monster, Yu Aiyong told them that it was exactly what she wanted to point out, that it will cause a catastrophe. Taehyun made Ryohei his punching bag. He called them lunatics. Ryohei laughed at him and told him that Kim Taehyun could have been lucky and defeated him, but he'll never be able to win against Nehru. So Ryohei pushed him to make a choice between begging for his life and watching those innocent hostages be offered as sacrifices, or charge into a fight that he had no chance of winning and die like a dog. Ryohei kept laughing while Taehyun was in rage. The sun was about to set. The building is situated on an isolated island, and the warp gate had been blocked. A subordinate reported to Nehru that Ryohei had lost. The subordinate explained that the whereabouts of Taehyun, who took down Ryohei, were unknown, along with the Phoenix Potion. He asked what they should do. Nehru laughed and said that there's no chance of winning a face-to-face fight, so Taehyun had been waiting for the association's reinforcements. However, that will not be enough. This villain then raised his hand and dark smoke enveloped it. Nehru used his ability on some of the people in there. He was about to choke them to death. His strategy was, if Taehyun doesn't show up, he'll drag him out. The woman who had been choked was in a sorry state. Nehru announced the beginning of the festival for their god. But then, he noticed something. There was a blackout. The terrorists were confused since all the bombs were blasted ages ago, but it did not cause a blackout, but now just all of a sudden, it happened. Nehru was angry. The sacrifice that he was holding earlier had disappeared in a second. Taehyun, in stealth, was behind him. Taehyun's fist was almost on his face. The chains were so close to him, but he was quick to evade it. He had a difficult time, and Taehyun thought that he had got him, but the chains were diffused. A snake had appeared. Kim Taehyun was taken aback. Nehru had several snakes around him and several fireballs too. There was a big explosion. Fortunately, Taehyun had escaped that. He didn't expect that Nehru would have monsters hidden on top of his head. He was like Medusa. Taehyun wondered what's the deal with that guy. The civilians asked Taehyun if he's there to rescue them. They begged him to untie the ropes and help them. Some even offered compensation. Taehyun nonchalantly threw them using his chains and told them that they were all in his way. His attention shifted to the monster noises. Since there were so many of them who were on their way to him, the monsters struck him. They all looked menacing, but Taehyun easily sliced them with his dagger. He emerged from being surrounded by the monsters. He used his abilities. As he lunged towards them, the monsters made loud noises upon being hurt. Some monsters got triggered. They looked so ferocious as they advanced. Taehyun was surprised that several monsters were on their way towards him. He was confused, and the impact of the attack of the monsters created an explosion. Nehru commented that Taehyun was a fool. He told him that he shouldn't have treated the monsters from the skill contract with the devil, the same as the monsters that he had seen until now. The monsters are under Nehru's control through the contract with the devil, and using his magic, the monsters became sturdier than other monsters, and they are far stronger. Kim Taehyun got hit and he coughed up blood. Nehru uttered that just because Taehyun defeated Ryohei, he shouldn't have thought of defying God's will. More monsters run towards where Kim Taehyun is. The civilians were worried because they thought that Taehyun was completely being overpowered. One person even complained that when they asked Taehyun to save them, Taehyun did as he pleased, but now it looked like he can't win against those monsters. A person corrected this man that that is not what's happening in there. They were all confused. The old man who spoke told them to look carefully. Then he explained that thanks to Taehyun, the monsters aren't paying any attention to them. He added that despite being overpowered with the monsters, Taehyun was far from running away and he's not allowing a single monster to come their way. Almost all of the people looked mind-blown. The old man added that Taehyun had evacuated the hostages over to that side by throwing them up in the air just now. The old man shed tears. He had certainty about Taehyun, that Taehyun had thought of nothing else but saving them. That also made the others emotional. And from resentment, it was replaced with gratitude. They cheered for Taehyun and expressed their trust in him. Taehyun used his chains to fight. It choked several monsters, and with that, he brought them down. Then he yelled for everyone to shut up. The people were confused. Even Nehru. Taeyun complained that the hostages kept getting in his way and the damn monsters kept coming at him. He yelled that he couldn't do that stupid shit anymore. It was funny how that made the civilians sweat heavily. Nehru laughed and asked if Taehyun is deciding to give up. Then Taehyun yelled, "So please end this quickly. Play your part, Jian-won." Nehru was taken aback. A man entered the room. Nehru was confused about who that person was, and when he had entered, Jian-won had a blue ball of light on his palms. He apologized to Taehyun for making him wait for a long time. And there he goes. Earlier, Ryohei was unconscious, and Jian-won had encountered that body. Jian-won asked Kim Taehyun what it was about. Taehyun explained that those are the security team guys who are in cahoots with the terrorists. Jian-won couldn't believe that it happened while he was gone. Taehyun told him that they had more pressing issues at hand. Taehyun explained that the warp gate control room is swarming with monsters by Nehru. Fighting the villains isn't a huge problem, but it's the fact that the monsters won't sit still when they see the civilians. And above all, the people could get swept into all of it. And so, he told Jian-won that he needed his skill. The gate manipulation. Jian-won was surprised. He explained that he wanted to help, but unless he knew the exact warp point, connecting the gate with the association side was going to be impossible. Taehyun told him that it doesn't matter, since he's only after one thing. Jian-won looked at him with disbelief. Taehyun planned to send out the monsters. The warp gate glowed. It was getting activated. The monsters were being sucked in, and they slowly disappeared in the room. Nehru couldn't believe it. He was so confused about what just happened. The monsters kept getting sucked in. When Jian-won first heard the plan, he thought it was absurd. No one would have actually thought that it would work. Now, only Nehru and the terrorists are left. That made Park Jian-won think that they are about to win. Taehyun called his name loudly. He then instructed Jian-won that his role is over, so he should take the hostages with him and leave at once. He protested. He wanted to be by his side. Taehyun rejected him firmly because the opponent is an S-ranked just like him. Nehru jumped to the level where Taehyun is. Taehyun explained that in that fight, he can't protect anyone. Nehru was enraged. He called out Taehyun's name angrily. Taehyun had the nerve to mock him by replying, "Yay, what is it? You called me?" Jian-won was torn, but he decided to follow Taehyun's instructions. He led everyone to the door. Taehyun watched them leave, and he was relieved that it was sorted out. Now all that's left is his fight. Nehru threw a large fireball at him. Taehyun looked serious as he dashed away. He attacked Nehru with his chains, and it sent several debris flying in the air. Nehru called him a fool, and Nehru doubted that he's an S-ranker like him. Nehru covered his arm in flames and asked him if he thinks that a kid likes him. The flame turned into a form of a dragon, and then he asked if a kid like Taehyun could actually stop him. Taehyun braced himself for the attack. The attack was so powerful that it caused a large explosion in the room. Nehru turned white and several monsters appeared. He told Taehyun that it doesn't matter how many monsters he had killed or how many hostages he had rescued, because if he can't win against Nehru, all of his effort would prove meaningless. He called Taehyun a filthy non-believer, and so Taehyun would receive a punishment for his sin of soiling the name of God, and that punishment is death. Several monsters charged towards him. Taehyun laughed since Nehru kept yapping on his own. He told Nehru that he will be the one who will die there. Nehru was surprised. Taehyun activated a skill, and it created the same dragon-like monster that Nehru made earlier. Now, its prey is Nehru. It had a wide mouth. Nehru was in great disbelief. He wondered if Taehyun had hidden his real power all this time. Nehru laughed, and it became louder. He expressed that he acknowledged that Taehyun is the highest quality sacrifice, but Taehyun isn't the only one who's hiding his powers. Then he heard someone cough. People came out of the warp. The terrorists were choking and coughing up blood, and they were slowly reduced to ashes. Taehyun was in utter shock. Nehru declared that all sacrifices had been offered. A strange creature crept out of Nehru's back. He prayed to his god. Taehyun watched with a horrified face, and from Nehru's back, a green dragon-like monster appeared. It was a rank S bone dragon. A few moments earlier, outside the building, it can be seen from the outside that the civilians led by Jian-won were faced against some of the terrorists. Jian-won complained how there's still so many terrorists. The terrorists wondered if those people escaped from the floor above. The terrorists had the idea that since those civilians had run away, it would be okay to have them killed, but the terrorists started coughing blood. They screamed in pain while Jianwang and the rest watched them. Jianwang was confused. Both him and the rest of the people were terrified. Jianwang gazed out the window because of explosions coming from the other side of the building. He wondered what was happening. The large monster attacked Taiyun. Taiyun was blasted away. He screamed loudly while he fell. Nehru rode the backside of the monster. He uttered that, as always, the dragon is the strongest of all. Taiyun cursed. His chains appeared, and he stuck that on the wall while he held the other end to stop himself from falling. The chains were tugged, and when he finally lifted himself up, it broke. His feet slipped, and he found himself on the safe ground. He was breathing heavily. Taehyun was confused on where the monster came from. When he lifted his gaze, he was horrified. The dragon was in front of him, and its mouth had a ready laser beam to blast at him. Taehyun was stunned. He took the dragon's attack with his body, and it blasted him to the other side of the building. It was a powerful attack that kept him on air for quite some time. Nehru told him to die while he went after Taehyun. Taehyun was already pissed off to that meatless fucking dragon skeleton. He launched a powerful attack towards it, but it was not effective. The dragon released a beam as a counterattack. Taehyun was in great disbelief. The whole building exploded. It burned most of the way to ashes. Nehru stood at the back of the dragon and watched the whole scene. He expressed that it was shocking, since he didn't expect Taehyun to make it out alive after facing that attack. Taehyun was hanging in there in one piece, but he's already exhausted. In his head, he acknowledged how strong Narendra Nehru is. He couldn't believe that he barely blocked that, even after using predation at full power. It's unbelievable that they're both S-rankers. A thought crossed his mind. For Nehru to wield such power, there's no way that he's okay. Taehyun assumed that Nehru must be close to his limits now. So, Taehyun thought of stalling, but the thought immediately perished when Nehru laughed. He called Taehyun a filthy believer and told him that he can see right through him. Nehru told him that he knew Taehyun thought of stalling for time, and it's definitely not a bad reasoning, but he warned Taehyun that he should know that petty tricks won't work on him. The dragon flapped its wings, and it soars to the opposite building. Taehyun was taken aback. It's targeting the location of Jianwang and the other people. They froze in horror. The dragon was almost just on the other side of the glass, and it attacked directly on them, which caused a major destruction of the floor. At that time, at the Korean Association, a staff announced that the emergency purpose warp gate had been connected. The coordinates were correct, and everyone was ready to enter the portal. They were slightly concerned that only their country had been connected. With that, the player might be at risk of extreme danger, even if it's a player like Sungjin. Park Sungjin replied that it was nonsense, because if that's the case for him, then how much danger must that kid be in? That made the staff realize her mistake. They announced entry to the East Point. Park Sungjin announced to everyone that they will exterminate the terrorists and rescue their comrades. The blast earlier caused a lot of casualties. Jianwon was badly hurt, but he's still conscious. He immediately got up when he saw a man blocking another blast. He was surprised to see Taehyun. Taehyun gave his all to counter the attack. He continuously used his predation skill to block the powerful attack. The dragon emits more bluish fire. Nehru expected Taehyun to do that, so he planned to burn him to ashes then and there. Jeonwon was really concerned for him. He told him not to worry about them since it will be all over for them if Taehyun dies. Jeonwon begged him. Taehyun knew Jeonwon was right, but he still persists. Taehyun thought that now he can't fight against a bone dragon in a head-on fight. The only method he has is to wait for Nehru to reach his limits. But still, Taehyun didn't give up. His power clashed with the bone dragon. He chose not to give up yet. He went beyond his limits, while forcing himself to find a way to save everyone there. He kept thinking. All of a sudden, he heard someone say, "I can't take this anymore." He looked behind him to see who it was, and he saw Jianwon crawling. Jianwon was confused on why Taehyun is staring at him that way. Taehyun wondered what that voice was, and the system notified him that predation rank is temporarily being adjusted. Predation rank has increased to rank A. Taehyun's powers have surpassed his limits, so his body will no longer be able to handle predation's power. He wondered what was happening. Predation had turned to rank yes. Our MC was starting to lose consciousness while his skill continued to grow more powerful. Meanwhile, this old man just stood there. He also got confused on what's happening. The next thing he knew, Taeyun's power made the dragon's attack dissipate. Now, predation is ranked triple S. Taeyun was notified that predation is unable to deactivate. He was still standing, but the difference was, there's a large amount of power surrounding him. He screamed from the pain. He thought that predation was going berserk. He realized that King gave him powers. He thought about how ridiculous the situation was. He wondered if it's the end for him. He thought how he's dying pointlessly, especially after all the time it took for him to get where he is. His body is cracking. He had a strong will not to die, and he maintained this will even until his arm already fell off. Taeyun couldn't hold himself up any longer. He landed on the pool of his blood. Nehru was greatly affected by his attack. He wondered if Taeyun forced his skill to go berserk. A ridiculous amount of energy overwhelms Nehru. And what's even harder to understand for him is that Taeyun couldn't handle the load of his skills and fainted already, but the skill hasn't stopped. That made Nehru angry. He uttered how daring it was for a non-believer. He lectured Taeyun that if he planned to oppose God to his every end, then Nehru took the initiative to end Ahayun's life with his own hands. He targeted Taeyun's unconscious body. The dragon claws appeared, but all of a sudden that arm was chopped off. Nehru couldn't process what had just happened. Next thing he knew, Taeyun was back on his feet, and when he turned around, he saw something that would be enough to make him tremble. A gigantic, ominous red creature had appeared. It had multiple heads, and it was even larger than the freaking building. It roared loudly. Nehru uttered, "What on earth?" Kim Taeyun mocked him for saying something about God. He told Nehru what a joke. Nehru knew he was doomed. He was horrified. He asked, "Who are you?" He knew that was no longer Taeyun, especially with that immense power. The person inside Taeyun replied that is no damn concern to an insect, because after all, Narendra Nehru is already dead. Nehru couldn't follow the conversation. Red blades touched his body. Taeyun, now with red hair, stood there, and it released a powerful attack that painted the area crimson red. The system notified him of a new skill called Demonic Contract. Taeyun found himself in a dark place. He was confused since he was just with Nehru. All of a sudden, the chains appeared, and it tied up Taeyun. He wondered what was happening. After being tied up, large boulders came crashing on him. He recognized that it was his skills, stone skin, and paralysis. He asked himself, what the hell is going on? A pair of hands appeared, and the king's authority showed up, which led him to feel immense pain. He felt like he's being burned alive. He wondered why his skills were attacking him. Then he heard a voice that mocked him for calling it his skills. The voice asked, since when were those his powers? When he just ate all of that. And now the voice forced him to spit out all he took in. Several monsters charged towards him, but he couldn't do anything except to watch it. All of a sudden, there was an intense bright light. A pillow and a blanket were thrown in the air. Taeyun fell off the bed. He was panting. While sweating heavily, he realized that it was just a dream. He looked at his hand and saw that he's not hurt, and his right arm that predation broke down is now fine. Sungjin came in and saw that he's already up. He's surprised to see Sungjin there. Sungjin offered him some food. The table was filled with snacks. While having a snack, Sungjin explained that the association and the alchemists prepared the place for him as a way to show courtesy to repay him from what he did during the terror attack. Sungjin added that it was thanks to Kim Tae-hyun that even Ryohei got arrested after falling for the terrorists' temptations. Compared to the scale of the terror attack, many actually survived. Sungjin informed Tae-hyun that countless people already visited him out of worry, from his parents to chairmen, and they were bawling their eyes out. Sungjin explained to him that the tests didn't show any health issues in the first place, and Sungjin stayed behind just in case villains or reporters got involved. Tae-hyun was quiet, and then he expressed that he was certain that he passed out while fighting Narendra Nehru. He wondered what on earth happened. Sungjin replied, as I thought, you're the same. Tae-hyun asked him what he meant. Sungjin expressed that he wanted to ask him about that too. Back then, Jeon-won had seen him. Tae-hyun has red hair and he stood there. After ending Nehru in one strike, and Jeon-won instinctively knew that it was Tae-hyun, but at the same time, he's not. Jeon-won inquired what that person had done to Tae-hyun, but that caused Jeon-won immense fear. When Taehyun looked at him, Taehyun looked really scary, and it seemed like he's going to attack him. Jeon-won trembled in fear. Then he coughed up blood and immediately lost consciousness. Taehyun noticed his red arm was disappearing. He knew that he reached his limit. He smiled as he decided to return for now, but he made sure that it would only be for the meantime. Then Kim Taehyun's body fell to the ground. It looked like he was sleeping peacefully. All of a sudden, someone came running. It was Sungjin, and in panic, he woke up Taehyun. The rest of the team checked and confirmed the survivors in the area. It was reported that everyone was just unconscious, and it doesn't look like their lives are in any danger. Another person was concerned that the whereabouts of the terrorists and Nehru were unknown. Sungjin cursed. He kept calling Kim Taehyun's name. He couldn't understand what just happened there. When Taehyun heard that, the shock was evident on his face. Sungjin narrated that after that, he asked the survivors about what happened. All of them remembered Taehyun stopping Nehru, but they couldn't recall the overall situation at all. Sungjin expressed that it's as if something had messed with the memories of the survivors. He assumed that it must be the terrorists doing it. He started to leave and wished Taehyun to take good care of himself. He informed Taehyun that if he finds something else, he will get in touch with him. Deep inside, Taehyun knew that it can't be Nehru's doing. He's also confused since he had no idea how he got healed, but he was certain that his arm got destroyed because of predation, and he knew that Nehru fell prey to predation since it informed him that demonic contract rank B had been registered. With that, Taehyun had the ability to open the gate to the abyss. That caught his attention. He realized that it was a skill to summon monsters. It required 200 magic, but his current magic at the moment is only 180. Sungjin went back and called him to say that there's another visitor. Taehyun was surprised. Liam A-young appeared. Taehyun's surprised face was funny. With that, Sungjin truly left this time. Liam A-young told him that she's there to visit him, and she gave him a basket of fruits.
That's all the time we have for today. If you want to watch the next part, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and see you on to the next one.